across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Very good afternoon to you. Thank you so much as ever to Ian Collins. Back tomorrow between 1 and 4, but we're on with Drive. What an extraordinary show yesterday. Just exploded, didn't it, after Yvette Cooper stood up in the Commons and admitted that the grooming gang scandal deserved a national inquiry. Well, this station and many of us like-minded people have been saying forever that the fallout extraordinary. It's on the front of every single newspaper. The problem sometimes with drive time is that you do the stories as they break and then they're running throughout the rest of the day, but it is still absolutely front and centre. The fear, and Ian Collins touched upon it just there, the fear, of course, is that this inquiry will not go far enough. I happen to believe, I'd love to know your thoughts today, whatever you're doing, whatever you're thinking about, we'd love to hear what you make of this story and others, but predominantly the fact that who has covered this up? How high does this go? How far and how deep is this an issue, right? The police, social services, doctors in the NHS, surgeons, I don't know, school teachers, politicians, councillors. If our Prime Minister, who stood up in January and said, and I quote, "I don't believe there needs to be an inquiry, it's a bunch of people jumping on the far-right bandwagon," if he genuinely believed that and yet, 6 months later is saying, no, Baroness Casey's right. He's questions to answer, hasn't he? Why did he not want an inquiry? I'll tell you exactly why, and it's an unpopular thing, but I don't give a damn. I do not actually give a damn. He didn't want an inquiry because he was terrified of losing a certain Muslim vote. We are not saying, and we will never say, that all of the perpetrators of these crimes are British Pakistani men or Muslims, but even Yvette Cooper admitted that a large majority were, and even Yvette Cooper admitted that the data, the ethnicity data, hadn't been kept. This is an absolute, I said it yesterday, and I will keep saying it, it's an absolute stain on the United Kingdom. However high this goes, this has to be dealt with. It is disgusting, it is heinous, and I hope, you talk about, is it going to be a whitewash, right? If people have been part of covering this up whilst in public office, they should be prosecuted and they should be jailed. You also will know, because no doubt we've been talking about it on other shows today, that asylum seekers, we talk about it every single day, the migration problem, apparently it's going to be worse this week because lo and behold the weather's grey. Asylum seekers are also, in their numbers, behind these grooming gang cases. And I would love, it's never going to happen, is it, on Talk? But I would love one of those do-gooders, not Greta, whatever her name is. I would love one of those activists who spend their entire time online banging on about how unfair people like I are because we dare to say, my God, why are we opening our borders to people from un-war-torn countries to have their asses wiped far better than anybody in this country who's worked all their lives? I would love one person to come in here and sit or go on the phone and go, answer this question, right? Illegal immigrants, Asian men, British Pakistani men, were raping young white girls as young as 8, and yet nothing was done, including by police who said, oh, well, it might cause social division. I'll tell you what's going to cause social division, and I'm not trying to upset anybody. What's going to cause social division in this country, right? And we're playing gang... I don't even want to... Do you know something, actually? Sorry, I'm going to say the wrong thing. If you're watching on YouTube, we've got gang profiles up. Look at... revolting, right? If we're getting to a point in this country where you come from or the colour of your skin determines whether you're found to be breaking the law and you're prosecuted, it says absolutely nothing about this country. So much to talk about. We'll talk, of course, about migration. Today, just to make you realise that my life is as bizarre as Ryan thinks it is, we discovered that the small boat crisis, right, ready for this? Try not to squeak. Illegal migrants are given free TV licences paid for by you. I've just moved into a new house. The trauma of trying to move your TV licence from an old address to a new one. But don't worry, if you're an illegal migrant, you get a TV licence for free. I'm going to take a big deep breath and tell if you want to be on the show, 0344 499 1000, typical number. You can send a WhatsApp voice note on the same number, 0344 499 1000. You can text me right now, 8722, that's treble 2. Start your message with the word talk. Amy is pushing the buttons. Ryan is taking the WhatsApp voice notes. Jana's doing a great job. Jana, I know, I'm just joking. And Jodie's in from Liverpool taking your calls. Please be part of Drive Time on Talk 0344 01344 499 1000. We say a very good afternoon to our first guest, former MEP and Brexiteer, chairman of the Great British Pack. God, I want to know what he says. Ben Habib, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Good afternoon, Jeremy. Very well, thank you. How are you?
I struggled yesterday, Ben. The phones, the numbers, everything went nuts because if I strip this down... Have you got daughters?
I have a daughter, yeah.
If you strip this down, how did the Prime Minister of this country in January, with a straight face, say, we do not need a national inquiry? Did he not think it would be a good idea to go and see his daughter upstairs in 10 Downing Street doing her GCSEs or her homework or whatever and think, if a man did that to my kid when she was 8, I would, well, I'm telling you, I'd go to prison. I've heard theories that these are working class girls with mental problems and disabilities who have been taken advantage. But the fact remains, and even Yvette Cooper made this point, right? These grooming gangs, rape gangs, let's call them, paedophile rape gangs, the majority of these men were British Pakistanis or Muslim men or illegal migrants. And it's about time we as a country did something about it, isn't it?
It is, and you know, you asked in your opening remarks, how far does this go? Well, we know how far it goes. It goes right up to the Prime Minister, because in their reluctance to have an inquiry, they revealed precisely how they think about this problem. And I agree. I'm sure he's chasing Muslim votes in the country, but I think it goes further than that. I think that the liberal Islington elite, if I can call them that, have an ideology which is based in this false notion that no matter where you come from on the globe, you have every right to be in the United Kingdom. Doesn't matter if you're from the backwaters of the deepest Punjab and you've never, come within walking distance of a school. You should be welcome in the United Kingdom. And it doesn't matter whether you hate the country, whether you hate our culture, whether you hate our people, you should be welcome in the United Kingdom. This is the foundational building blocks of their political philosophy. And it is on that basis that they've got open borders. And if you start attacking a particular part of, I can't call them society because they're not. These people are just, as you said, gang rapists, not part of our society. But if you reveal them for who they are, it attacks the foundational building blocks of their political philosophy. Instead of being able to categorize people as far right because of, raising legitimate concerns, the Prime Minister will need to look in the mirror and go, damn, they were right. Correct, I mean, not right. They were correct. And I was the one that was wrong. And I think he's now having a mirror placed up to him in a really brutal way. And I hope I suspect the inquiry won't deliver what the British people want.
Well, it's really interesting, actually. I don't know if you saw. I mean, she came to the party just for a minute. 4 people affected by the rape gang scandal spoke at a press conference held by Kemi Badenoch today, with one survivor telling the Conservative leader that an inquiry would not be sufficient without, and I speak slowly here, survivor-led education in schools. It came after Sakir bowed to pressure yesterday, commissioned the national inquiry. But the U-turn, based on Baroness Casey's report, many people are saying will be a flipping whitewash. In fact, I had people, Ben, yesterday saying they've known about this for months, maybe for 10 weeks or whatever. They reckon that he bought time. And people are genuinely saying, it's not conspiratorial, they're saying how many people are covering their tracks. My point is this, it's not even political. I don't care whether it's, the Tories are not blameless in this. This has been going on for years. I want people to accept or understand that as a society, I don't care the colour of your skin, I don't care where you come from. If we are going to allow this to go unpassed, that to me goes at the very root of everything that we should be about. And if police or social services have turned a blind eye for fear of causing, racial tension, what does that say, for God's sake? What does that say about where we'll end up, Ben Habib?
Yeah, I mean, there are 2 things at play. The first is that we've got to enforce our borders. We've got to make sure that the people we're letting into our country are people who don't hold us in antipathy, who are of similar cultural background. We can't be throwing open our doors to people who are from vastly different cultures, who have very different values. We can't be doing it. It is, the Tories, I've heard them dismiss it, the Labour Party dismiss it, the culture wars. It's not a small issue. the culture of a country goes to the heart and soul of what a country is. And we can't be throwing open our doors to people who don't share our cultural values, number one. And number two, if you have made the mistake of letting them in, as you rightly say, then justice must be applied absolutely blindly. It doesn't matter what ethnicity they are, where they come from, whether it breaches the prime minister's political philosophy, whether it breaches this ridiculous drive we have towards diversity, equity, and inclusion. The reality is, if you're a criminal, you have to face the full charge and and take full responsibility for your criminal acts. And but I suspect, as you said, this is going to be a whitewash. We've had repeated whitewashes. They won't want to destabilize their own ship on this.
Well, I tell you, I'm going to jump in for a reason, because I said this yesterday, and a lot of people agree with me, and several obviously didn't. I believe we're at a really, really interesting's the wrong word, crucial moment in our history, and I'm not trying to build up anything. I looked at COVID, I looked at the cost of living crisis, I looked at Keir Starmer saying that anybody that, took to the streets after Southport was a far-right thug. I don't condone those far-right thugs at all, but there is within this country a massively growing discontentment about how people who have been born here, who have paid their way, who have lived their lives correctly, paid their taxes, not broken the law, are being shortchanged and are being put at the back of the queue. And this goes even further, because I don't believe what I call the average Great Britain is going to be in any way accepting of our country allowing this to be swept. I don't believe this can go away. I don't believe that this can be whitewashed, and I believe that every single bit of pressure possible should be brought to bear. And I don't care whether it's the Prime Minister or a local council official. I don't care. If it, just as a father, Ben, you can hear it. I went home last night, I was raging. I don't understand how this can have been swept under the carpet. These are innocent girls from working class families whose lives will be blighted forever. We live in a world where apparently if you say to... I mean, it happened to me the other day. In the lift with a woman, you go first? Why? Who do you think? Oh, Jesus Christ. Do you know what? Stay in the bloody lift. I can't be doing with it. We're worried about the most insignificant, trivial rubbish on a daily basis. And yet what? As a society, we've allowed this to go on and we're turning a blind eye. Can't happen. Sorry, mate. Can't happen. Not in my world.
But I mean, what you've revealed there is actually the same problem. The reason you can't say what you feel you should be freely able to say in a lift, for example, is because they have shut down freedom of speech. It is the shutting down of freedom of speech which allows these rape gangs to get away with what they're getting away with. As I say, there's a political philosophy, a sort of extreme form of liberalism being practiced by a governing class where everyone should be allowed to do what they wish to do. And if anyone should stand up, has a temerity to stand up and challenge it, they are slapped down. Their ability to speak is shut down. That's why these gangs have got away with it, because the governing class actually want multiculturalism. They want to promote and protect these people because it's part of their philosophy.
Well, they don't want to protect. They don't want to protect white innocent girls who are being raped. They don't.
They will. They are literally sacrificing civil society in the United Kingdom on the altar of their ideology. That also explains why they're prepared to let thousands of young men crossed from France on dinghies into our waters, into our country, without challenging them. They would rather protect their interests than protect civil society in the United Kingdom. You are the problem, Jeremy. I am the problem for these people. They don't see their job as protecting you, me, and our kin, and our children, and our parents and so on. They see their job as protecting the minority over and above, if necessary.
Taking that point, then, in simplistic terms, how the hell have we allowed a class or whoever, how have we allowed a plethora of people to get to a position where they are imposing that horrendous ideology on the rest of us? That's fundamentally wrong.
It is fundamentally wrong, and we've got to repeat. A lot of it comes through legislation. A lot of it was started by Tony Blair. People cite the Human Rights Act, which embodies the European Convention of Human Rights. They cite that as some kind of good thing. actually what the ECHR has done, what the Human Rights Act has done, is to set aside what it means to be a British citizen. It is precisely the result of what we're seeing today is the result of the Human Rights Act coupled with the Equalities Act. First of all, you make everyone equal and you set aside what it means to be a British citizen. That's what the Human Rights Act did. And then the Equalities Act required us to progressively discriminate in favor of minorities. There's nothing equal about it. It's progressive discrimination. So you set aside what it means to be British, and then you protect those who attack being those of us who are British.
I honestly think there's going to come a point where I'm going to implode. I want you to stay with me. This is a voice note from Jack on Grooming. Go.
Whether or not Starmer knew what was going on or didn't know what was going on, at the end of the day, it's been swept under the carpet for so long by not just this government, but obviously previous governments. To turn around in January and say, we don't need a national inquiry, for all of it to backlash and, again, flip-flop again, come on, this is going to be absolutely demolishing for them if they don't get this right.
I don't think they can get it right, and I think he's right in that I think it goes back. I think it questions almost the moral compass of millions of people. Let's go to Newcastle. We've got Karen on the phone. Karen, Ben Habib is with me. What you got? A couple of minutes. Go.
Hi, Ben. Basically, sorry, I'm on catch-up because I was out celebrating buying my council house yesterday. So basically, I was watching your show yesterday at 4 o'clock in the morning. I think this is going to be a massive cover-up. Definitely a cover-up. It's not just down to Labour. This is down to Conservatives as well. Basically, there's going to be quite a lot of squeaky bums that's going to be panicking now. But I honestly do think, because we didn't have a national inquiry, that they have started already covering things up. Whether it's been Labour, whether it's been Conservatives, whether it's been the police, whether it's been social services, they've all had a bit in there. And I do think there's going to be a lot of cover-ups. And I don't think we're going to see anything from this.
Well, I don't disagree. Ben, Baroness Casey, in a 200-page audit, thank you, Karen, said she accused officials of being in denial about the scale of the problem and said that lessons had not been learnt from crimes committed in Rotherham a decade ago. I've been on this show for 2 years, and I remember ranting because a police officer told me that in Rotherham, he said, and I quote, well, the thing is, Jez, you know, they probably were not as robust as they should have been because it could have caused problems in terms of tension. For me, again, we're talking about civilised society. I don't care where you come from. If you think it's OK to rape a young girl, you should be. I mean, listen to this. Mandatory 25-year sentence for child groomers and the deportation of the entire family, says Marie. I couldn't agree more. It's about time that although... I mean, I said it at the beginning of the show, Ben. Can you imagine one of those do-gooding activists on the show right now who think it's OK for men to leave their wives and children in war-torn countries, not come to France as war-torn, not come here? What do we read today? Have you heard this? Migrants given free TV licences. Mike Graham, bless his heart, had a pilot. I mean, this is beyond comprehension. A pilot phoning this morning, right? That they give them free TV, free flying lessons. I don't quite know why an illegal migrant needs it just to fly some of his mates in. But on a serious note, mate, it's so imbalanced and it's so wrong, whether it's the migration crisis, what it's led to. It makes me sick to the stomach, Ben Habib. It really does.
Well, I'd say we're a country out of control, but we're ceasing to be a country. So you can't even say that, you know, without putting too fine a point on it. No, the whole political establishment is governing us in a way that is deeply detrimental to our existence. And as I've said many times, and indeed the reason I'm in politics is because I believe the country faces an existential threat. And it comes both constitutionally, but also culturally. And unless people wake up to the fact that the culture wars is not a small thing, that it goes to the heart of what this country is, unless people realize that we need a settled, homogeneous culture for the country, that is what defines a society. You're talking about civil society. In order to be a civil society, you've got to have a society that's civil. It can't be civil if it's torn apart by people who are not on the same agenda with us.
For many years, people like you and I who would have said, if you come into this country and you embrace this country, brilliant. You work, you pay your taxes. But so many people who seemingly come into this country, and I will be called all sorts of names for this, but it's true, come into this country because apparently where they come from is so awful, and then spend their entire time trying to create what they left in this country whilst knocking down what apparently is so bad about our country. So my point is always, if it's so bloody awful, why don't you stay where you came from in the first place? The reason, of course, is that we wipe the backsides of them. We joke about TV licenses and flying lessons and Pilates classes, but we know, don't we, that you arrive on a boat and you get a hotel and you get to see a doctor and you get your teeth fixed, and I don't care what any politician tells me. The British people have only got so much to give, and I think that, I keep saying it every day, and I'd love your take on this, that the old adage of, oh, Britain, you know, we're the leaders morally and we must do and we have it. Well, I think British people are done, mate. I think they're now at charity begins of home. We've given away too much to the detriment of our own people. I really believe that.
We are recreating a third world country in the United Kingdom. That is precisely what is happening right now. Economically, culturally, constitutionally, we've got a democratic deficit. Our constitution is being set aside habitually. Our culture is fragmented. Our economy is trashed. All of it with this political philosophy, this ideological obsession with putting the entire world's population on the same footing as the British people, not recognizing that they owe their primary and only duty, frankly, as far as I'm concerned, to the British state and the British citizenry. It's as basic as that. They don't get it.
Listen to this from Kath in West Sussex to finish. And I know, I'm sure people listening understand how passionate we are about this, because it's wrong, and it goes, in my mind, against the very grain of who we are and what we should be doing. Afternoon, Jez. This country truly sickens me, says Kath in West Sussex. A good friend of mine is 92 years of age, registered as virtually blind, and has 2 hearing aids. This makes me sick. He gets a 50% discount on his TV licence, and today I wake up and hear from Mike Graham that if you're an illegal immigrant, you get 100% of a discount. What the hell, on a serious... How can that allowed to be continued? And I don't care, don't mean to be, whether it's Great British Pack, whether it's Reform, whether it's the monster raving loony Dame Edna Everidge, I don't care. I don't believe the British people will stomach this for much longer. That just about sums up how appalling and a bad position we find ourselves in. Sum it all up. Where does it end, Ben Habib?
It ends with a political force that will stand true to its principles, and its principles being putting this country first and putting its peoples first. That is the political force we want, and I don't care whether it's Reform or something else. In my view, it won't be Reform, but I don't want to have that debate right now. We will have a political force. It will do it, and the way we've been governed has to be changed 180-degree turnaround.
Couldn't agree more. Always lovely to have you on, my friend. Legend Ben Habib, chairman of the Great British Pack, former MEP and Brexiteer. 424, we're live across the UK. This is Talk Drive. Carrying on from yesterday. Grooming gang victims, the inquiry will not go far enough. Kemi Badenoch, 4 gang victims today at a press conference saying this is going to be a whitewash. You need to talk to the people who were the victims, asylum seekers. Yes, it's been proven by Baroness Casey in large numbers were responsible for these rape gangs. The small boats crisis is getting worse because, hey, it's sunny. And just to make you bleeding Tuesday afternoon, if you're in your van or you're on the way home or you're stuck in a queue or you're waiting for the kids outside the school gate, when did you last pay your TV licence? I paid mine yesterday, 160-something quid. If you're a migrant, you get it for free. What the hell are we all doing? This is Talk Drive.
so unable to look and sound normal, to look and sound as if he understands why it is that so many voters feel so frustrated, feel so betrayed, feel so let down. He just doesn't seem to get that. He seems to exist in a kind of bubble of, hashtag be kind politics, the condemnation and smearing of anyone to the right of where he is.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
4:28, we're live across the UK. If you want to be part of the debate between now and 7 o'clock, as ever, my friends, 0344 499 1000. That is the telephone number. Same number for WhatsApp, voice messages. Ben's got one on grooming gangs. Go.
We talk about social cohesion, multiculturalism. Everybody questions British values. I'll tell you what British values are. British values are if my brother, cousin or uncle was raping little girls, they would be dragged down that police station. And I'll tell you what, if it was your cousin, brother or uncle, me and my mates would be down your house dragging him to the police station so that these poor children could get the justice they deserve. Where is the outrage from the Muslim community? I do not see it.
Couldn't agree more. Said it yesterday, wasn't popular, but there we go. Let's go to Herbie. He's in Harrow. You're on Talk Drive. Couple of minutes. Go.
Yes, good afternoon, Jeremy. Jeremy, this has gone on for far too long. It's got to be resolved once and for all. And I don't see why it should take 3 years to get the conclusion of what's been going on. We know what's been going on. Let's put it all together. Let's deal with it. Let's get the facts out there and imprison these people that need to go to prison for what they've done.
I agree. But for me, the issue, not even the issue, one of the issues that's blindingly obvious. And when I saw those 4 survivors with Kemi Badenoch today, I was thinking, these are victims. These are victims. These are kids whose lives have been blighted forever, right? This is not a political game. If it's a political game in Starmer's mind to protect a certain part of his vote, that's disgusting enough. But if our institutions, police officers, counsellors, social, I don't know, if they have been complicit in this, what does that say of what we've become as a society? What that says is that illegal immigration, I don't care if people get upset outside, right? Illegal immigration, people coming into this country who do not share our values, who spend their lives trying to destroy our values, are thinking and being allowed to get away with behaviour that is heinous and wrong and should not be acceptable. And as a sort of sane, nearly 6-year-old man, that frightens me that that's where we're at in the United Kingdom.
It's absolutely disgusting. I know somebody over 50 years ago who was raped by her next-door neighbour. And although the police were called and everything else, when it came to wanting to arrest him, do you know what when they went to court? The police said, "Oh, we won't take him to court because he's getting married." How in God's name can the institution say that as part of an excuse not to arrest such a man?
I supported the British police, men and women out on the beat doing their business for a long, long time. But there are massively serious questions to be asked of the upper echelons of many, many police forces again. And I'm going to read a message from Ryan's got his eyes on me. He always does that when he's looking worried. I'm going to read a message from a mate of mine. Thank you, Herbie. Rob, who is always phoning the show. And he says, and this is his opinion. Ryan's got his finger on the buzzer. What are the odds, Jez, that the Prime Minister of this country was the man in charge of the Crown prosecution at the time, probably the biggest cover-up in the history of this country? He wants us to believe because he prosecuted a couple he should take credit. He was the main man at the time. He is to blame, in my opinion. He moved the pieces to suit his needs. And I believe that he will cover up this inquiry. That's what many people are saying. What do you make of what Rob says there in Newcastle? 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Lindsay, Jez, Dartford. I had to work 3 jobs to pay for my flying lessons. They were 120 quid an hour back then. That's without the landing fees. It's a complete disgrace that these illegals are getting them free. We really are a joke of a country. To think my PIP may be cut due to welfare being out of control. I say stop benefits to these illegals and the bill will go down. I, like many people I know, am worried sick about where we're headed. We're headed to Westminster, to the Sun's chief, he's the boss man. Political editor of the Sun, Jack Elson, good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon, Jeremy. Yeah, fantastic. Thank you.
I really nearly imploded on air yesterday, mate. Just from a parental point of view, I just I know you're younger and all that, but it's so appalling. Let's start slightly differently. Let's start calmly talking about Kemi Badenoch today. 4 people affected by the rape gang spoke at a hastily convened press conference earlier, and I thought that the survivor who said that it needs to be survivor-led was spot on. Do you get the vibe inside the Commons that Labour are on the back foot, that all MPs are looking over their shoulder, that they understand the severity? Saw your headline this morning, there's some brilliant, we have been failed by the state. Do you think they understand how angry people are, Jack?
Well, I think you're right. And often, you don't hear me say this as a political journalist, but I think when it comes to this one, we probably have heard enough now from the politicians. And I think that the survivors being heard earlier in that Kemi Badenoch press conference was very powerful. And what really came through, I think, from that was just the collapse of trust in every element of the British state, from police to local councils to social services to Whitehall to Westminster, just how they've been failed across the board for decades now. And what they really said and what came through is that, yes, it's fantastic that the government now appear to be in listening mode and they appear to be actioning lots of the stuff in Louise Casey's report. But what they also cautioned about, with a massive dollop of cynicism, was we have been here before many, many times. We have had many reports now into the grooming scandal in Rotherham, in Telford, and Alexis Jay's report, Louise Casey's report now. What Louise Casey said to MPs this morning when she appeared was that it didn't take much for her to scratch beneath the surface to see all of this stuff that is going on. And if other people had done that, they would have seen the same thing.
Which leads the cynics amongst us, and
Exactly.
there are millions, to believe that this has been deliberately avoided. And I want to ask you, as the political editor of The Sun, a newspaper that connects with what I call working people, normal people, the length and breadth of this country, for in no better way. There's no paper that does it better. But I want to know this. I think the British people are at the end of their tether. You talk about having been failed before. I think this attacks the very ethos of what's right and what's wrong. We're talking about kids. We can talk about them being from working class families, having physical or mental disabilities. But if we are saying that we, Jack, as a society, have, whoever it is amongst us, has covered up something so heinous, that's beyond the pale, mate. To me, that's one of the biggest scandals, I think, in our history. I'm not trying to overegg it. I really believe that. I think you're spot on with that front page today. I think people, I don't think it's distrust now. I think there's going to be real anger and pit of the stomach anger. I really do.
Yeah, and I would very much encourage people watching Talk Now to go and read the Sun leader in today's paper. It's a very lengthy leader. Quite a rare one, but obviously I think the gravity of the situation commands it. And the first opening lines are, the grooming scandal is probably one of the biggest scandals in modern British history, but it is also one of the biggest cover-ups in modern British history. And when you see about the lengths which councils and police and officials went to bury lots of the horrific elements of the grooming scandal, is absolutely shocking. And I think you're right when you say the British public are at the end of their tether. And I think that is finally being realised in Downing Street, and that is why they've been dragged to this position now. It's interesting, in the past 5 minutes or so, we've heard some lines from Keir Starmer. He's out in Canada at the G7 summit. And this row has now become incredibly political. You heard Kemi Badenoch in the Commons yesterday and at this press conference this morning accusing Labour of being dragged to this position. Keir Starmer in the past 5 minutes or so has hit back, and he's accused Kemi Badenoch of doing nothing when she was Women and Equalities Minister.
Well, I'm not going to lie, pal. You're far nearer to it than I am. But the Tories are as complicit in this. I'm talking about society, and that's why I liked so much the article this morning, because you're talking about the state in its entirety, be that politicians of whatever political persuasion. I'm old. I was brought up to be proud of Great Britain, right? Proud to be British, right? I have nothing against people coming to this country who can give me something, who will earn money, pay taxes, bring some value to the United Kingdom. I've been very vocal on what I think about illegal migrants, but I said it just then. If you're going to be okay with people coming to this country who apparently are escaping countries that are so appalling that ours is the only place that they will come to, and we apparently make it easy for them to do that. And yet, whilst they're here, their behaviour, the institutions that they attack, the things they want to do are so against everything we believe in. I don't understand how a sane politician thinks they can sell something so skewed to the British people. And again, you know, not wanting to say that this is going to go, I don't know where it's going to go, but I do believe the British people are at the end of their tether, and I think that they are going to be saying, we need to be put. We just. I can't see this going away. I don't blame. I don't blame Starmer. I blame him for being such an idiot that in January he said that. I blame them all. I think it's disgraceful.
No, totally. And when Yvette Cooper stood up in the Commons yesterday and said that anybody who has sexually assaulted and abused a child will be denied refugee status in this country, most people wouldn't be throwing their arms in the air going Hosanna. They'd be thinking, why the bleeding neck hasn't it been done before? That seems like a statement of the bleeding obvious. That people who have raped and abused children shouldn't be granted any sort of asylum in this country. And the fact that that currently is happening, people would just think it's absolutely extraordinary.
You said this to somebody on
the entire state.
Said this to somebody on the phone who lives in a different country. Won't go into details. And I said I woke up this morning for the first time in my life, and I'm embarrassed to be British. I think this is absolutely the most disgusting, vile. I just go, however deep it goes, politically, of course. I mean, there was the latest YouGov Times voting survey today, was it, or yesterday? Reform on top with 20. Yeah, Reform on top with 27%. Labour below, Conservatives nowhere. Third, the Liberal Democrats no change. Do you feel, from your experiences, we've talked a lot about the uniparty thing and two parties. Do you think that Reform is starting to believe that it is the answer, or do you think that Reform is, at best, nothing more, these figures, than a huge protest by people who are fed up to the back teeth of what they see?
I think at the moment it is probably more of the latter. I think that the Reform are definitely a lightning rod just for absolute despair and anger with the way the country is going. But that does give them an opening, and, you know, protest votes can get you a long way. And I think that if they start to put meat in the bones of some of their policy platform, you know, we've still got 4 years to the next general election, then I think they're in for a very good chance. But I've said it for a while now. I think that any of the three main parties probably have a shot at winning the next election, and there is a long time to go. And I think that, you know, while clearly Labour have their work cut out and the Tories have their work cut out even more, I think that everyone is in play. What I would say, again, is that I think that it's very easy for Reform at the moment because, one, Labour are in government, and so it's easy to give them a kicking, and the Tories is easy to give them a kicking as well because they had 14 years to do the things which they're currently saying they want to do.
Need meat on the bone from Reform. I voted Reform, and I would say that categorically. Let me sum up. Rachel says, can you just tell Jack, I read the article, the leader in the Sun today, absolutely excellent. There seem to be now two groups in our society. One, the people who find child rape games abhorrent, and the others who are happy to look the other way whilst pretending that their ideology is beneficial to this country, which it patently isn't. Jack, we appreciate it. I was thinking, so this new job, political editor, there you are, beavering away in the House of Commons, and your predecessors in a top hat and tails at Royal Ascot.
I know. There's three certainties in life, isn't there? Death, taxes, and Harry Cole getting married at the races. But yes, he's. I saw some great pictures of him today.
I think he's the man we should all follow. Legend, Jack. Thank you, mate. We'll speak to you very soon. 20-5, live across the United Kingdom. The anger is palpable again. This is 24 hours since Yvette Cooper stood up in the Commons and said, yeah, there should be a national inquiry into the grooming gang scandal. There has been a cover-up. Institutions are responsible, all sorts of institutions. Data has not been collected. A large number of these perpetrators are asylum seekers, are British Pakistani men, are Muslims. Why are there groups, societies, culture? Why are we hearing nothing? Somebody said it earlier. Why have we in the last 24 hours not heard from the leader of the British Pakistanis or a prominent Muslim voice to say that they find this abhorrent as well? It is nothing more than abhorrent. And for all the do-gooders who are already slagging me off on social media, if you've got a child, right, maybe you haven't. If you've got a daughter, just go and have a look. Tonight, you know, you read a bedtime story, so go and look at that 8-year-old, 6-year-old, 5-year-old, and imagine a man doing to your daughter what has happened to these kids. Absolutely disgraceful. Talk Drive.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Been told off by Jodie. Patience, mate. Slightly scared. 0344, I know how you feel, Cameron. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222 on the way. Nigel Evans, former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons. We're going to East Yorkshire. Stephen, you're on Talk Drive. Couple of minutes. What you got?
Well, I'm just wondering if anybody is remotely going to be charged with this, will they get a custodial sentence? Because we've got a two-tier justice system now that seems to put people in jail for Facebook posts, but for people who commit sex crimes, they get a suspended sentence.
Hugh Edwards is walking free, the pedo, and we're paying for his pension. And Lucy Connolly, who put ill-advised words about the Muslim community, I accept it before you jump on me, all the do-gooders, should have been taught that those words were irresponsible, should have been explained to her with what... No, she's languishing in jail. And yet, we have men, British Pakistani men, Muslim men, illegal migrants, not all of them, but a majority. Yvette Cooper said it before you get your knickers in a twist. Walking the streets of this country because our police and our institutions are too scared to say, oi, you're a paedophile, you're going to jail. Oh, that might upset your community. Tough. I don't get it, Stephen. I really don't get it. I think it's frightening.
Yeah, and that's the problem. And I think it's going to get worse. I actually don't believe... I think they're skewing the system so much with the judiciary now. I don't believe we will get a satisfactory outcome on any of this, and it'll be just more of a whitewash.
Do you believe... I tell you what I do think, though. I don't think the British people will accept a whitewash anymore. I think they've reached that moment. I don't.
Temperatures are rising and people's blood's boiling. Mine's been boiling for months now, and it's just getting worse and worse.
Couldn't agree more. Lovely to have you on. For a Yorkshireman to say his blood's boiling, that's quite brave. 5:15, we're live across the UK. He was once the former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons, the MP for the Ribble Valley. It all went wrong. He lost his seat. He ended up in Little Chef, but I've recovered him, got him a book deal. He now traverses the world with his erudite brilliance. Nigel Evans, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I'm great, thanks, Jeremy. I'm in London. Only briefly. I'll be in Spain on Sunday, carrying on with that lovely book that I'm sure that I'll be able to plug on your show.
Oh, you can. Mate, we've talked lots over the last few months. I love having you on. You won't see me or find me more angry than I am today. I don't. Probably because I've got 4 daughters. I'm not going to attack your party or the Labour Party. I'm going to attack every single... I cannot understand, Nigel Evans, how... According to our Home Secretary yesterday, I don't want to talk about how in January he said this and he said that. If this is true, Nige, for years, institutions, police, social services, medical professionals, whoever, politicians, have covered up what I, as a father, would say is the most heinous crime possible, which is the rape, that's what we're talking about, of innocent young girls, be they working class, be they special needs. I'm sorry, that's not relevant. What is relevant is, as Stephen in East Yorkshire said, there's now one set of rules for one and one rules for the other, and we know that. That is not racist, it is a fact. What the hell happens next, Nigel Evans? This is appalling, man. Appalling.
Yeah, it is appalling, and I agree with you as well. I'm not interested in the political footballing as to who is to blame. The fact is, everybody's to blame. This has clearly been going on for some time. The inquiry should have started years ago. There are people serving sentences in prisons for doing what you have just described. And I know that there was an attempt earlier this year to try and force the House of Commons to vote for a full inquiry. And Pierre said he wasn't interested in that, that he didn't believe it was necessary. And it's only this report. Thank God for this report. Yeah. Because look at how many people will have gone through the purgatory, the appalling abuse that so many have gone through over the last several decades. And
nice, you served publicly for 30 years. Just say this to me as a mate, right? I'm embarrassed today. What does this say about the United Kingdom? I don't care who it is. I don't care if it's from the highest to the lowest. If people have covered up, to me, this is just bread and butter of what's right and wrong. How can anybody with a... well, unless they don't have a conscience, explain to me how anybody turns a blind eye to such heinous crime. I don't understand it.
Yeah, I think there needs to be two inquiries. Nothing should stop this current grooming gang inquiry. It needs to be set up as quickly as possible and clearly evidence taken, judge-led, and absolutely bring those who are... listen to the victims and bring those who are responsible to trial as quickly as possible and get them put down. At the same time, Jeremy, there needs to be another inquiry that runs concurrent, not going to interrupt the original inquiry, looking at the processes, looking at who's to blame. And for each and every politician, civil servant, local government authority official, the police, you name it, who are responsible, they also need to be brought to book. Because
what do you say to the millions of people in this country? Kemi Badenoch, that press conference today with the 4 victims, they said it should be survivor-led. Completely agree. Millions of people, Nigel, in the last 24 hours are all saying the same thing, which is his grooming gang inquiry will not go far enough. It will be a whitewash. It will be a cover-up. It will be institutionalised again and again. The leader in the Sun today from Jack Elson was, we have been failed by the state. And that is a feeling that ain't going away from people, mate. It's not.
No. And it's happening here, by the way, Jeremy. I'm just wondering whether it's happening in other countries too. I'm thinking about France, Germany, other countries where there are huge preponderances of Pakistani groups, because they are it seems to be the majority of those, even though they're a minority of people within the country. When you're looking at this particular crime, they are in a majority, and there's something clearly gone wrong there. The culture, whatever it happens to be, there is the perpetrators are by far the largest amount of people, and it's not just within the United Kingdom. So I'm just wondering whether this sort of inquiry should be taking place in other countries within Europe as well. I
think the inquiry needs to shred every single fear that it's going to upset people. I think it needs to base itself entirely on what is right and what is wrong, and the rape of young girls is fundamentally the most disgusting and heinous crime. I don't care where you come from, the colour of your skin, your age, your rank. I don't care if you're in public. I don't care what you are. You have to go down for that. And as a civilised society, if we cannot tell the British people we're going to do that, that's deep-seated in my mind. I just...
No, absolutely. But also, Jeremy, the people who were part of the cover-up, that needs to be looked at as well. Why is it that they took those particular decisions? Why is it that they were afraid to say that actually it's a preponderance of Pakistani groups who are perpetrating this? There will be others, and they need to be looked at as well. But why is it that they felt it necessary to do a cover-up in the first place?
No, it's a short one today. If you were here, I'd give you this truffle. Unfortunately not. Get writing that book. We'll have you on. We really appreciate it. A short one today. But Nigel Evans, former Deputy Speaker of the House of Commons, on Talk Drive. 8 minutes to 5. Where's that hour gone? You want to be on this? 0344 499 1000. Back in 3.
I was debating on Sunday with a Northwest Labour MP, and I was challenging him to use the word Pakistani. And he was saying to me, "Why do you keep accusing, it being predominantly Pakistani men?" I said, "Because it is, and it's only people like me that are brave enough to stand up, and the other Reform MPs brave enough to stand up and say, wake up and smell the coffee. Yeah. This is certainly historically." It's been very much a Pakistani grooming gang issue.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon to Vince from Cumbria, as angry as I am. Dario from Dartford, Jez Gripping Show, but I fear I'm certain of yet more cover-up. How many years did it take for Savile's details to be released? Still no accountability for those who knew. Couldn't agree more. Lynn Donaldson, good afternoon. I agree, she says, 100% with Rob from Newcastle. And I hope some committed journalist son will be able to dig and dig and dig until that useless git Starmer is exposed for what he is. To the phone lines, we'll head to Wolverhampton, mate. It's the Black Country. Stephen, on Talk Drive, 2 minutes, go.
The problem is, Jeremy, that every single person that you're talking about is got themselves up the greasy pole, and once they've got to the top of it, they cover their backsides and they cover every single thing by HR departments, etc., including the politicians. There's no way you're going to be able to get through to what they've done and how they're going to hide things concerning these rape gangs, etc. It's going to be impossible for you to find out what they've done or what they haven't done. It's literally, I'm okay, sod everybody else, and it's taxpayers' money. So that's why they're able to do it, and it's included the politicians when everybody found out what they were doing with taxpayers' money. The thing
is, and I take your point, and I'm not trying to be idealistic, and I'm not trying to say something should happen that doesn't, but I actually don't believe the British people will stomach that anymore. I think whether it's the expenses scandal, whether it's COVID, whether it's the cost of living, I think the British people have had enough, and I think the pressure will intensify still further the whole time. Please God it does. Stephen in Wolverhampton, thank you. Let's go to Birmingham, very near to Wolverhampton. Short joyride, that's a joke. Mark, you've literally got 2 minutes. What do you want to say?
Hello, Jeremy. I just wanted to say that orders come from the top. So if you've got a copper that's not filling out the racial profiling, who told him not to do it? Was it his superintendent? Was it the chief constable? Did it come down from the Home Office? And those are the questions that need to be asked, and they need to follow it up the line.
Do you yourself feel that it will be a whitewash? Do you yourself? Are you a father?
I'm not, mate, but I think I'll be straight with you, and I think what it is I think that the way that our country's set up, it's kind of set up that you have someone working in a council, they don't do their job, they can stay there for years. And that's what the jobs are like. Everybody knows it.
Am I being naive to say that I'm not prepared to accept this? Am I? Maybe I'm just wrong. Maybe I should just.
You're doing the right thing, and with a little bit of luck, the good people of this country can change things. But we've got a system, and the entire system needs ripping out and replacing. If Trump or J.D. Vance come in, he'd clean up, and that's what we need. But it's not going to happen. We've got a system in place, and there's people here that are going to make sure that system stays in, whether we like it or not.
And I think that, and I listen to you, and you're a very balanced human being, and then the phone call will end, and I'll sit here and I think, but 8-year-old girls were raped. And society or institutions are looking past that. There can be, in my mind, in my world, there can be there's no justification. There's absolutely nothing. That's wrong.
Yeah, you're talking about people with no compassion, Jeremy. Yeah. No compassion. They don't care.
They're just worried about their jobs, and I think they'll still be in them, unfortunately, whatever happens.
Well, Lee, we've got to make sure that that doesn't happen. I really appreciate your call. Mark in Birmingham. Busy first hour. If you want to be on 0344 499 1000. Just heard we have a statement. Nigel Farage, the leader of reform for many people, our next Prime Minister in 4 years' time. He has made a statement. We'll play that out ahead of Isabel Oakeshott after the news at 5. Just to let you know as well, the amazing, my mate, MG back in the morning, Mike Graham with Breakfast, Morning Glory, and Nigel Farage live and exclusive on Talk. Only here tomorrow morning. They will no doubt be talking grooming gangs and what he feels should happen next. I feel that the British people have had enough. I'd love to know your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Please do start your message with the word talk. Almost 5. News is on the way and more of your calls. And Isabel Oakeshott next on Talk.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Let's drive live across the UK. Talk, of course, the home of free speech and common sense. It seems to be dominated again by the grooming gang scandal. Yesterday, Yvette Cooper stood up in the Commons and said that, yes, the Labour government was going to accept the findings of the Baroness Casey report. She said it's widespread, it's an institutionalised lie. Many of the perpetrators were Muslim, British, Pakistani men as well, and illegal migrants. And the world, I think, has set up and gone, do you know what? This is an absolute disgrace. Keir Starmer, oh, yeah, right, has just told Sky News, I'm frustrated at people who shout and scream about grooming gangs but do absolutely nothing. For your information, Starmer, I completely accept that this is not just at your door. This is also at the ex-MPs and Prime Ministers and all those people. But it's a bit rich from you, the Director of Public Prosecutions, who lets Savile off the hook, isn't it? Also in the last couple of minutes, Nigel Farage, Reform UK's leader, and for many, the would-be next Prime Minister. He's made a statement on the grooming gangs inquiry. This is what he said.
Well, maybe at last we're getting somewhere on the rape gangs, these horrendous multiple rapes by thousands of men of Pakistani origin, of predominantly white young British girls. I first gave that sentence out in about 2014 to be condemned for daring to talk about this. But what's become clearer and clearer over the years is a massive cover-up. Social services, police, politicians, nobody wanted to talk about this for fear of being seen to be racist. Now, since we've been in Parliament, once again pushing for a full inquiry, and it has to have judicial powers. Otherwise, you can't call people in and hold them to account. So you might think that Keir Starmer doing a U-turn, and boy, he said people that supported the inquiry were getting on a far-right bandwagon. But there's no U-turn this Prime Minister is not capable of. So you might think it's good news that he's announced this inquiry. Well, there's a couple of things to point out. The first is Baroness Casey, who produced this report, which has finally pressured him into saying something. She makes it clear that a large number of these cases are committed not just by foreign-born nationals, but by asylum seekers. That means, yes, those young men that I've been talking about for the last 5 years, crossing the English Channel, undocumented, and often coming from cultures in which women aren't even second-class citizens. That's the first big point that I draw out from this. But is Keir Starmer going to smash the gangs? 2,000 across the English Channel in the space of the last week alone. But the second point is read into the detail. See it here on this screen. This is not the full national inquiry the Prime Minister wants you to think it is. It's going to have detailed looks at specific areas as defined by the inquiry itself, which means there could be cases of mass abuse that don't even get discussed. We don't yet know who the judge is. We're told it could last for 3 years. And my fear is this stain on our country, and believe you me, the rest of the world looks at this honestly with incredulity. My American friends can't believe this sort of stuff could have happened in the United Kingdom. My fear is that he tries to tell you, Starmer, that he's going to deal with the problem, and actually what they might once again do is kick this into the long grass. We will keep as much pressure on the government as we possibly can. And there'll come a point when I ask you to contact your MPs as well. I fear we're not going to get what it looks like today.
Nigel Farage's statement on the grooming gangs inquiry that Starmer announced yesterday via Yvette Cooper. He will be live and exclusive on Talk Breakfast with the legend that is Mike Graham tomorrow morning, I think after 8. He called it a stain on our country. You heard Nigel Farage just say that his American friends look at us and go, really? That's exactly what I'm saying. Surely, whatever your political persuasion, in life there are intrinsic values, right and wrong, good and bad. Raping children and hiding it, I can't even, it's beyond me. My next guest, Talk's international editor, so much to talk about, I have to say. Isabel Oakeshott, good afternoon, how are you?
Good afternoon, and it won't surprise you to hear that I agree with everything that Nigel Farage said there. And I think for me, the key thing that I want to hear from this government is that they will commit to delivering this inquiry and publishing the report before the next election, so that voters actually have a chance to decide who was to blame and whether they actually want to frankly exercise the only power they have, which is at the ballot box, to punish those people.
I think you and I know each other well enough to know that we are always straight and honest. I found yesterday's show probably the most not difficult, emotional, I don't know. You're a mother, you've got a daughter. I've got 4 daughters. I couldn't give a fat rat's backside, Isabel Oakeshott, about Reform, Labour, Tory or Liberal Democrats right now. What I care about is what Jack Elsom summed up brilliantly on the front of the Sun this morning. We, or not we actually, white 8-year-old girls, whether they're from working class families or they've got disability, I don't care, bless them, These girls have been let down by an institutionalised cover-up, whether it's politicians, police, local council officials, medical professionals, don't care who it is. Nigel got it right. That is just morally repugnant, a stain on our society. I don't even know how we can be sitting and having a debate as to who is to blame. As a society, to have allowed that to happen, to me, Isabel, is abhorrent. I will say it again. If somebody did that to my daughter, one of my daughters, I wouldn't care where they came from. I'd be in prison. I don't care if that gets me into trouble. I understand politics to a degree. What I think politicians don't understand is that the British people are at the end of their tether. This will be, in my humble opinion, the straw that broke the camel's back.
Well, I think you might very well be right about that. And you're right. I mean, I have two young daughters, and they're just at the age of many of these poor young girls that were so appallingly abused. And the idea that their childhoods could be profoundly damaged, that they would be traumatized in this way, makes me feel completely sick, and as protective as I know you feel and any good parent feels about their children. I mean, there are really, really uncomfortable questions here. I mean, I don't know enough about this to know what proportion of the victims were, for example, in care. And in that case, they were also let down by those who were acting in loco parentis, those who were supposed to be looking after them. But I think it is a significant proportion were in care. And as for those who were not in care, why were their parents unaware of what was going on? The last thing I want to do is suggest that somehow, you know, to deflect blame from the perpetrators and say, well, it's also the parents' fault. But I think there are uncomfortable questions about how these children were being looked after by their own parents. If they were being systematically abused over a long period of time, how come the parents didn't know about it? How come they weren't creating the kind of merry hell that you and I would, Jeremy? Or is it that in our society, unfortunately, certain parents can bang their head against a brick wall, can smash down doors or try to, and still no one listens to them because of snobbery or because they're disempowered or whatever it is? These are more nuanced questions, aren't they, than just who's to blame, you know, which authorities turned their blind eye. Which are the perpetrators? I want to know about who was supposed to be looking after those girls.
I agree. And actually what Nigel said, which I absolutely concur with, is, and I said it yesterday, and the response was phenomenal, but as ever, one would be taken down on social media by the lefties. I've never understood, right? So you've got Great Britain, which is apparently the leader of everything that's good in the world, although for me this morning I woke up embarrassed to be British, and I'm being completely honest. You have these people coming into this country because apparently where they come from is appalling, not war-torn, just appalling. They come to Great Britain because we wipe their backsides and make it so easy for them to come here, and they spend their entire time trashing anything that we have whilst trying to implement a lifestyle or cultures or institutions, the very which of like they're trying to escape. Nigel Farage said, and I quote, right, there are women, there are men perpetrating these crimes, right, foreign nationals and asylum seekers who come from countries where women are not even deemed to be second-class citizens, and yet you have a left-wing chattering class sticking up and slagging off people like you and I in this station saying, oh, you're being racist, you're being really unfair. No, I'm not being racist. Baroness Casey's report said that the majority of these men were British Pakistani, they were Muslim, they were asylum seekers. But for me as a father, I don't care where you come from. I want somebody to explain to me, or I want society to have it explained to them, how it's been allowed to be covered. I don't care whether it's a Prime Minister of the Tory party or a council worker from wherever. How have we got to a point where it's okay? Where it's okay for that to happen to kids? It's demoralising. And people go, oh, well, you know, I mean, it's an institutional cover-up. Well, I'd love to hear what would happen if that had been Starmer's daughter or Rachel Reeves's daughter. I'm being completely serious. That's what we're taught. Or David Cameron's daughter, or Boris Johnson's daughter, or Theresa May. Do you know what I'm saying? And that for me, and we hear about, you know, they get to a position, they climb the greasy pole, and they'll do anything to tick the DEI boxes. What about people's lives? What about kids' lives? I think sometimes politics moves to a side, and we're talking about the difference between right and wrong. And I think Nigel's right. The world will look at this And this view that all Britain's the best, we're becoming a laughing stock. But more than that, we're becoming embarrassing, and it's just wrong. It just makes me sick. It's sick to the stomach, Isabel. It really does.
You're right. It is really embarrassing. You know, the UK still has an enormous reputation on the world stage, you know, for all the best efforts of this lot to ruin that.
Yeah.
You know, we do still have a reputation to defend, and it's being chipped away at pretty much each and every week for a whole variety of reasons. And this is particularly shaming on our country. But I think it goes so deep, you know, it goes so deep about what's happened to our society, about a kind of underclass, if you like, you know, that many of these victims came from, where they're forgotten, they're ignored, they have no agency, they don't count. You know, when I used to work on tabloid papers, you know, some time ago, privately, you know, in newsrooms, these sorts of people were called lowlife, and editors didn't want to actually cover stories about them. I'm not kidding. You know, you'll probably remember this. These sorts of people were dismissed as that. You know, they weren't nice.
I feel like I could say something that will get me into severe trouble, and what the hell I'm going to say. I'm sure my critics out there will take aim at what I'm about to say. Everybody knows I did a show for 15 years, which was either loved or hated in equal measure. And one of the biggest criticisms from people was that it dealt with a certain type of person. But let me tell you categorically, and I've never said this publicly, the millions of people that watched that show and gave the people the chance to come on and air their grievances, and the millions of people that watched it, but more than that, the thousands who went to detox and rehab and found out who their parents are, working class people who never ever had the opportunity to be on television or have a voice or be heard. That is what we're talking about, because let me tell you, right, that programme, this inquiry, what we're talking about today shines a light, in my humble opinion, on a part of society that many people in this country would prefer not to exist, or would prefer to go, oh, it doesn't happen. And so to them, and this is fundamentally, can you imagine if this had happened to a different section of society, upper class children, middle class? I don't know, but it's so wrong on every level to me. I hate it.
That is my point, you know, and you and I are coming from the same place on this, because I can tell you, you know, cast back to the years in which this was happening, you know, in the, let's say the 2000s, and even probably before that, I'm sure it was going on then as well. You know, any journalist of my generation that worked in newsrooms will tell you of their frustration when they found, you know, shocking stories that they couldn't get published because the people involved weren't considered to be pretty enough, or weren't considered to be quite the right background. And that is just part of our culture, isn't it? And it shouldn't be. And what you're saying is, the work you used to do actually gave people like that a platform, and everyone can sneer as much as they like. But it is that snobbery, I think, that has probably enabled the terrible perpetrators of this sort of abuse to get away with it, because, you know, polite society just wanted to look the other way.
Absolutely. Very quickly, because I want to talk to you about the world as well. Asylum seekers targeted yesterday by Yvette Cooper. Significant number of cases. This afternoon, Downing Street admitted that the small boats crisis in the English Channel is deteriorating on an hourly basis. So we're not smashing the gangs, we're not stopping the boats. And for a news organisation like us, of a journalist like you who have spent years saying this, we would be absolutely downed in the past. Oh, you can't say it about these poor, unfortunate people. Actually, the truth is, we are allowing people to come into this country. We don't know who they are, these young men, and many do turn out to be criminals / rapists / just bad people, and we're doing nothing about it, Isabel Oakeshott. Again.
Or traumatised people. You know, if those that are actually from war zones may well be traumatised, and I'm very sorry that they are, and that's awful for them. But is it the duty of our country to pick up the pieces and face the consequences of people who have got mental health problems because they've had such an awful time from wherever it is they've come from? I just wonder, what more will it take for the left to come out of their denial on all of this. I mean, even today, when I posted on social media that the government's own commissioned report highlights that asylum seekers are amongst the many being investigated in ongoing police investigations into ongoing cases of child sex grooming, I've still got people on social media saying, where's your evidence for that? You know, and this just shows you the determination of some on the left to shut their ears to the reality.
But the problem that I have with them, and they won't come on here, is I want to say to them, so let's just cut aside your politics. I mean, I can talk about how, sadly, as a country, we spent years, decades, probably as apologists saying, you know, we're the moral leaders of the world, we're this, we're that, come here, we'll look after you, you're having a horrible, horrible time. We did it with Ukraine. You make a point about war-torn. You'll never be able to convince me, and I would love the answer from these people, but they won't come on. Right? If you come from France, having left your wife and kids apparently in a war-torn zone, that's not to be confirmed though, you're not going to be in France because it's a tent. You're going to come here because today we find out, and this is not even a joke, you get a free TV licence, you can even get bloody flying lessons. I'm not even joking. That's how bad it is in the United Kingdom. My point is, whether it's the rape gangs, whether it's illegal migrants, whether it's pensioners, whether it's farmers, I genuinely believe the British people have reached, I don't know what the right phrase is,
a tipping point.
Crossroads, a tipping point where they're going to go, sorry, yes, we've always been the fairest, but right now we're on our uppers, and you can lay out the carpet in your mind to wipe the backside of everybody who apparently is worse off, but actually we're struggling. And now on top of that, we've got this immorality. I think it's frightening. I really do.
It's totally overwhelming. And the truth is, our country is not a charity. We are a country. And our first duty is to each other and those of us that have paid into the system, that contribute, that were born here. That has to come first. Of course, people are generous in the UK. We wanted to help people from Ukraine. We want to do our best for, you know, all those translators and others that helped in Afghanistan. But we can't be a gigantic trash can for all the world's, you know, disaffected and troubled people. It just can't be.
I want to move from that very quickly because we've got some breaking news. We'll know what's happening. We've talked about it repeatedly on this station between Israel and Iran. The powder keg that is the Middle East is changing on a daily and hourly basis. Donald Trump has just released a statement on the situation. Isabel, if you can just respond briefly. He said on Truth Social, we now have complete and total control of the skies over Iran. Iran had good sky trackers and other defensive equipment, and plenty of it, but it doesn't compare to the American-made, conceived and manufactured stuff. Nobody does it better than the good old USA. And J.D. Vance has just announced in the last few minutes that Trump may decide to take extra action on Iran. Thoughts on the situation? I read something this morning, Isabel, that said that many politicians across the world are keeping quiet, slagging off publicly Israel, but underneath accepting that Israel's doing the work that needs to be done to rid this world of probably one of the worst states ever, Iran, that funds terrorist groups.
I mean, insiders, the geopolitical experts generally think that this may well be the end game for the Iranian regime. This is qualitatively different to the strikes that have been on Iran in the past. This is of a whole different order of magnitude. Now, when you ask the question, if this regime is toppled, what comes next? I've yet to find anyone who's got an answer to that. And that is always the problem, isn't it, with regime change? But if Israel has played the primary role in bringing this about, then that little country, which has been so abandoned by so many people, in particular in our own government and so many of the British people as well, that little country will have done the world, and this region in particular in the Middle East, an absolutely enormous service for which they will deserve the most incredible recognition. But we are obviously not there yet. But there is an absolute feeling here in the Middle East tonight that the tectonic plates are shifting. This is mega.
Really great to have you on. So grateful. I know how busy you are. Talks International. Isabel Oakeshott live and exclusive there, 5:23. I'll tell you what, right, let's see if we can get somebody on to talk about this military news. Donald Trump just releasing that statement saying we have complete and total control of the skies over Iran. They had good sky trackers, but it doesn't compare to the American-made, conceived and manufactured stuff. J.D. Vance saying that Trump may decide to take extra action on Iran. He, of course, left the G7 summit yesterday before signing some agreement. Did he rush for a reason? We've heard over the last 24 hours planes, boats making their way to Europe and to the Middle East. Is Donald Trump in cahoots with Israel? Israel's been slaughtered for many reasons, and before you jump on the bandwagon, I don't like what I see in Gaza, but I would remind the world of this, right? Hezbollah, Hamas, the Houthis, horrendous terrorist organisations are all funded by the mad mullahs of Iran. Are we seeing a seismic shift? We'll do more of this after the break. 0344 499 1000. This is Talk Drive.
Of doing the world a service, of destroying the Iranian nuclear project before Iran could get nukes. But let's not mistake ourselves into thinking that this conflict started on Friday. The Iranian regime has been waging a war of aggression against Israel on 7 fronts since the October 7th massacre. That's when Hamas, an Iranian proxy army, invaded Israel and was then joined by Hezbollah, the Houthis, and other Iranian proxy forces across the region, raining missiles against Israel from every direction.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
5:28. Well, Tuesday afternoon, we're live across the UK. Jez on Drive, 0344 499 1000, text to 87222. So in the last few minutes, we'll start talking about Israel and Iran. You know what's going on. Donald Trump's released a statement saying we now have complete and total control of the skies over Iran. Iran had good sky trackers and other defensive equipment and plenty of it, but it doesn't compare to American-made, conceived and manufactured stuff. Nobody does it better than the good old USA. J.D. Vance has also waded in the last few minutes that Trump may decide to take extra action on Iran. As I said before the break, he left the G7 summit in a hurry. Planes, boats are making their way to Europe and to the Middle East. There are many people who believe that he might be gearing up to do something in Iran. Now, all the lefties will jump up and down, but let's just remind people of what I said before. The mad mullahs of Iran have funded terrorist groups like Hezbollah, Hamas and the Houthis for years. And one man who has repeatedly said that axis, the axis of Russia and China and Iran, something was going to happen. The Rear Admiral Chris Parry, ex-NATO and Royal Navy commander. Welcome to Talk Drive. How are you, my friend?
I'm good. You too?
Isabel Oakeshott in the Middle East just said to me that there is a feeling in the Middle East that this is the beginning of the end game. What are your thoughts, Chris Parry?
I gave a presentation last Monday and said I thought that Iran's regime wouldn't last 6 months. That was before the Israeli attacks. I think it's just accelerated now, given the conditions inside Iran. 70% of people on less than $5 a day. They hate their government. The only thing that's holding them in place right now is the heavily repressive apparatus of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard and the security services. And I think if the government is seen not to be able to defend the country or its institutions, I think you'll find there's going to be a fairly violent revolution in Iran.
In terms of, you've always been really straight with me, and because you are a voice of such authority on these things, and we've talked long and over many months. There will be people who have been massively critical of Israel and what's happening in Gaza who will be saying, because they've said it to me, why are Israel doing this, right? What is Netanyahu trying to achieve? There are other people who will say, Chris, actually, whilst the world sits on its hands, maybe slagging Israel off verbally, maybe inside there's a lot of world leaders thinking, thank God they're doing what needs to be done to Iran. What's your take on that?
Jeremy, my take on that is for nearly, 40 years, Iran has been saying we want to destroy Israel and kill all the Jewish people. That's an existential threat. At those stages, Israel said we want to destroy Iran and kill all Iranians. And that's the point. You know, Israel stands on the precipice every single day. And I'm afraid to say what Hamas set in train on 7th of October 2023 has led to this. Israel has progressively gone round, dealt with the Houthis, dealt with Hamas and Hezbollah. It's probably helped in Syria as well. It's transforming its own environment to make sure that Israelis do not live in fear every day. They've now reached the head of the snake, the organization that has actually been stimulating all this hatred and aggression against Israel. And, Jeremy, in my experience, wars are caused by two things: windows of opportunity and windows of vulnerability. And we've got Israel having a window of opportunity right now to do something about it, and you've got Iran uniquely vulnerable. Now, the only dangers that I see coming are if China decides to step in, because it is absolutely dependent on cheap oil and gas from Iran. And certainly if somebody can offer a transitional arrangement there, that would help ease out the mullahs. If Iran tries to stop traffic in the Straits of Hormuz, or if they attack American installations anywhere in the world, then this starts to escalate pretty rapidly and involves obviously the superpowers. But right now, Iran is heading for a regime change, in my view. Israel will not give up on this and wants to have security for its people.
Over the last couple of days, I've read articles that say, is Netanyahu in cahoots with Trump? Is that why he left G7? Is he doing his dirty work? This has just come out. Breaking news, Trump, the latest post on Truth Social a minute ago. We know exactly where the so-called supreme leader is hiding. He is an easy target, but he's safe there. We are not going to take him out, at least not for now, says Donald Trump, which would make you think, if you read that that he and Netanyahu are in this together. Thoughts?
Yeah, it would be really silly to take out the Grand Ayatollah. I mean, we have to remember he's a religious figure. He claims direct descent in succession terms from the Prophet himself. You don't need to take him out. He's absolutely powerless now. And there's soon going to be a huge succession crisis. There already is a succession crisis surrounding him because he's very old and he could go at any minute anyway. So there's no point in taking him out, to tell you the truth. It wouldn't be smart. In the meantime, what I do find strange is that Donald Trump is saying that they control the skies. Well, there's no doubt the Israelis control the skies. But here's the thing. Within 5 years, Jeremy, everyone and everything on the surface of this planet is going to be detectable. It's just the Americans, possibly the Chinese, are in that space already. So people are going to be able to find other people very quickly. And within 1 hour of decision, the Americans say they can take them out.
In terms of, I thought Isabel made a really salient point, a really good point as well, when she said, with any regime change, you're implying that this will happen, pressure from the Israelis, maybe or maybe not aided by the Americans, but the end point is that there will be, in your opinion, a revolution, and the mad mullahs who support terrorism, let's make that point, will be forced out. What happens after a regime like that is ousted by the public is always the worrying concern. And so you have people understandably across the world saying, oh, well, he's flexing his muscles and Israel's doing this. What happens afterwards to the people of Iran? What happens to a government in Iran?
Jeremy, I'm old enough to remember Iran before the revolution in '79. They are very talented people. And if they can get some sort of transitional arrangement that possibly is based on the current Shah, in inverted commas, he says he's got a plan, then I think there is a possibility for Iran to transition peacefully. But be in no doubt, there will be bloodshed. There was a lot of bloodshed in 1979. Many of the people who basically perpetrated that bloodshed are in senior positions today. I have no doubt this is not going to be easy on the eye. But I think if they can rally round perhaps the Shah, then they can transition to something. But again, be in no doubt, the security apparatus is very heavy. Remember, when we dismantled Germany and Japan at the end of World War II, we had to invade and flatten those countries before the security apparatus would lie down.
It's very interesting. Caroline's just texted me, and a lot of people who are anti this station or anti you and I and many others like us will say, oh, my God. But she says, with the Iran situation, she understands what they've done, how they've funded terrorism. My hope is that the US and Israel actually get rid of the regime and it's not a half-hearted effort. And I think that, from a military point of view, putting that to you is quite interesting, because there have been many instances. You think about what happened in Iraq and all the way up the Baghdad road and then pulling back. And actually, the problem, certainly in Gaza, is how to rid. I mean, it's easy, isn't it? Hamas, an awful terrorist organisation. The Iranian mullahs have funded terrorism. It's OK on the one hand to say, let's rid the world of these cancers, right? But actually doing it, making sure you rid completely, because you made the point. It's never nice. It's never easy. You told me this years ago. War is horrific. And when images, the world we live in now with social media, are portrayed across the world so obviously, of course, everybody jumps up and down and says, we don't want to see that. In whenever it was, after the Second World War, there wasn't social media. Some of the images would have been horrific, right?
Yeah, Jeremy, just think what happened in Syria. As soon as you break the will of the regime, then it all starts to tumble. They don't have the institutions or the resilience to withstand it. Once you can get the regime on the run, that country turns to something else. As I said, don't underestimate China's incentive to intervene here.
What about Russia? You've always talked to me about that axis of Russia, China and Iran as the existential threat to civilized sort of peace and quiet, really. We've heard about China and Taiwan. We've heard about Iran. What about Russia? Obviously, there's Ukraine and everything. There's world pressure. Can you see they being dragged into this? Are we really on a precipice or not?
Not at all. What is going to happen is you're going to see arms going from China and Russia to Iran. So you're going to see a lot more Chinese ballistic missiles, I think, heading for Iran. That's going to have to be clamped down on if we're going to contain this crisis. Russia is pretty powerless right now. They've got real worries about regime change themselves right now. I think it's very fragile on the back of Ukraine All you've got to do, Jeremy, is reduce the oil price by $15 a barrel by asking the Saudis to pump out more, and Russia can't continue the war in Ukraine. Obviously, the obvious counter to that is to shut the Straits of Hormuz so oil can't get out.
It was my phone, Chris. That's how unprofessional I am. I just got an alert, a news alert. I didn't know it was on. Let me ask you this for people who I know would want me to ask this question. A lot of people will watch what's going on. They'll see the posturing of Donald Trump. There are people who will text and email saying, what does this mean for us? What do we think? You believe, do you not, that Iran, over the next few days, weeks or months, the regime will change? Do you believe that that is a good thing for the world? And what do you think the world's reaction will be to the fact that Israel has been the mainstay of this?
Well, I think in terms of Israel, it's going to be all sins forgiven, to tell you the truth. They were right all along. We have to accept that Iran has not been a responsible member of the international community.
No.
It's been a real wolf in the world, to use an Iranian expression. The fact of life is, if you get rid of Iran, you release a hugely talented people onto the world stage. And if that is part of the free world as well, that has to be a real advantage. It would be like perestroika all over again if we get Iran back in the international community. I knew Iranians before the revolution. It was a wonderful country, and we want it back again amongst the civilized community. And they want to be back. That's more to the point. It's going to be a hard road, though, Jeremy. Don't expect it to be easy, and I think it will be drawn out. As I said, the security apparatus are heavily invested in the criminality and terrorism of this country, and they're not going to go down quietly. We've got to break the will and get them fleeing for Russia or fleeing to China or wherever they want to go.
Mate, always pleasure. I'm really glad that you jumped on after that breaking news from Donald Trump. Thank you, Rear Admiral Chris Parry, ex-NATO and Royal Navy commander, reacting to the news that Donald Trump posted on social media, 15, 20 minutes ago. We now have complete and total control of the skies over Iran. He said Iran has good sky trackers and other defensive equipment, but it doesn't compare to the American-made, conceived and manufactured stuff. This was followed by J.D. Vance on social media saying that Trump may decide to take extra action on Iran. Many people slagging off Israel for what's happening in Gaza, sort of get that, but, see both sides, are now saying, why are they doing this? Let's not forget, I'll keep saying it till I'm blue in the face, this regime, the mad mullahs of Iran, have funded terrorism for many, many years. Rear Admiral Chris Parry saying then, maybe America's involved, maybe Israel's taking the lead, maybe the world will sit up and realise at the end, unconditional surrender he's just put on social media. There we are. That's literally just come out. Unconditional surrender. Donald J. Trump on social media. What does that mean? It is a powder keg. Really interesting. Tour Drive, 20 to 6.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Way to wake up Monday to Friday. MG here with Morning Glory, and tomorrow an exclusive Nigel Farage, leader of Reform UK, on Breakfast with Mike Graham. Tune in your radios, your TVs, whatever you listen, however you listen, whatever. Do that tomorrow morning. He has made that statement about the grooming gangs inquiry very vocal, and made the point that when he said years ago these were British Pakistani men and Muslim men, he was deemed and called a racist. How the world has changed. 0344 499 1000. The other side of the Iran-Israel sort of powder keg. Chris in Brighton. How well has forced regime changed worked out in Iraq, Libya and Syria, you complete and utter fools? Salient point. What do you make of it? 0344 499 1000. To Milton Keynes. That's brave. Tom, you're on Talk Drive. Good evening.
Good evening.
I went to Milton Keynes once to do a programme on the sex industry.
It's a fantastic city.
It's not really, is it, to be honest? It's just roundabouts.
No, it's a fantastic city.
All right, I'll let you get. That doesn't sound like a Milton's Keynes. Hold on a minute. Hold on. That doesn't sound like a Milton's Keynes accent, does it? Where are you from?
As just said, I'm from Falkirk. This is fantastic.
No, Falkirk's great. Right. Tom, you're on. What do you want to say, my friend? Thanks for tuning in.
What I want to say is I'm a tradesman.
Yep.
So I work at the bottom end of the ladder. Mm-hmm. But I have in times been a foreman. And as a foreman, you are given targets.
Yeah.
We want your team to achieve this. And if you don't achieve it, you as a foreman will pay the price. So for me, for this inquiry, the very first exhibit is the lady from Manchester who first raised this. I'm sorry, I'm terrible with names.
Maggie Oliver, absolutely. We had her on the show yesterday. Brilliant woman.
So Maggie Oliver is the first person, and Maggie Oliver says, I reported this to Benjamin, to Farquhar, to whatever, right? So Benjamin and Farquhar are then the second persons on the inquiry to say, why did you say to ignore it? And either they go, I chose to, in which case you're going to prison, or I was told to by Montague.
Listen, Tom, okay. Listen, I could listen to you all day, but I'm going to tell you something. I completely agree with you. I believe this goes as high as is high possible, and I believe the chain will go up and up. The problem is, and the reason people are fearing a whitewash with this grooming gangs inquiry, if you look at the small print, and listen to Mike tomorrow morning because Nigel Farage will be here, is that what powers will it have? Will it have judicial powers to... my phone's giving me grief today. I've changed it 3 times now. I'm going to sack myself. Will it have the judicial power to force people to come? Because if it is an institutionalised cover-up, then people can refuse to turn up and refuse to give evidence. And that's why people, my friend, whether they're called Farquhar or whatever, that's the reason people are concerned. Thank you for your call. We'll go to Ipswich. Steve, you're on Talk Drive. Good evening. Go.
Hello, young man. Just a quickie.
Did you say young man?
Hell yes.
Well, how old are you old git?
Oh, 63, brother.
Oh, mate, you old git. I feel better now about my life. I've got 3 years on you.
Best years in the world. Fantastic. Anyway, moving swiftly on. The British, which come in all kinds of shades, colour, sizes and all the rest of it, you push us around and we'll take being pushed. And we've done it for donkey's years. We've been lied to, taken the rise out of by the establishment and the politicians of all various colours. And it gets to a point where, and I am so fearful of this, that the British people collectively will go flipping no more, enough. Mm-hmm. And if the government doesn't get this right, if the truth does not come out, if they lie, twist and turn anymore, they need to realise this. There's 150,000 coppers in this country, all hopefully doing a good job. The British Army, Air Force and Navy is about another 150. That's 300,000 agents of the state. There are 70 million of us. If 10% of us get really cross, they better watch out. And the thing is, right, and this is why I love this station forever, is
some people would just hear me out. Don't get arsy with me, right? Some people listen to that call and they go, what's he asking for? Is he asking for people to take the streets? No, like me, Steve is saying the following. Intrinsically, in a civilised society, which I've always believed Great Britain is, if we are going to accept, and Jack Elson, front page of the Sun today, go and check it out online. We've been lied to by the state. This is a cover-up. If we are as a society going to say, oh, well, you know, for whatever reasons, career politicians, I don't know, local politicians, it was a call, you know, these... If we even begin to think that that is acceptable, right, then we are finished. And we're not saying, nobody is saying take to the street. Nobody's saying that. What I'm saying, Stevie, and I will repeat saying, is the British people are starting to understand that their voice can be heard and that the only reason these bloody people are in any position of authority is because of us. And we need to use that power in the right way. Stephen S. Ipswich, thank you. I'm going to Somerset, which is very brave. Peter, you've got 2 minutes. Go.
OK. Hello, Jeremy.
Hello, mate.
My worry is that this inquiry is going to be, I hope, judge-led.
Yeah.
And in whose gift is the appointment of the judge?
Probably the Prime Minister, is it?
I don't know. God forbid that it's not, because it's going to be one of his human rights friends, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And also, what I noticed yesterday, when Mrs. Balls was on her feet talking as if she had just discovered something about the rape gangs, the look on the faces of her front bench, you should keep showing that. Bridget Phillipson, Jess Phillips, and that awful Lucy Powell woman.
Looked like they were chewing glass, didn't they?
They looked as if they just swallowed a wasp. And
my mum used to say that. Brilliant.
Well, yeah.
Before I let you go, I've got to ask you a question, because my parents lived in Somerset for years. Obviously, they're dead now. Whereabouts in Somerset are you from?
Well, I'm actually in North Somerset, which is about 8 miles outside of Bristol, in a place called Nailsea.
I know it very well. Just remember, when you do go out, if you see grass in the middle of the road, it's not necessarily a dual carriageway. Think of it. Peter in Somerset, you're a good man. Talk Drive, 10 to 6, back in 3.
Of doing the world a service, of destroying the Iranian nuclear project before Iran could get nukes. But let's not mistake ourselves into thinking that this conflict started on Friday. The Iranian regime has been waging a war of aggression against Israel on 7 fronts since the October 7th massacre. That's when Hamas, an Iranian proxy army, invaded Israel and was then joined by Hezbollah, the Houthis, and other Iranian proxy forces across the region, raining missiles against Israel from every direction.
UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
8 minutes to 6, we're live across the UK. We've done grooming gangs. We've talked about Donald Trump. Now we're just going to give 7 minutes to a broadcasting novice. Push the sport button, please.
Sport Summary on Talk.
Sam Allard, good evening. 7 minutes, go.
Good evening. Hi, Jeremy. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you? How is the detention centre you call your home? I reckon we should send all the illegal migrants to your flat because it looks really stark and bare and horrible.
On to the sport.
Are you all right, my friend? Am I the only... Now, you've accused me of being, in terms of sport, cynical. Club World Cup. Chelsea kicked off their FIFA Club World Cup campaign against LAFC. They won 2-0. Nobody gives a toss and nobody was at the ground. Nobody's interested. What an absolute joke of a competition. Why don't they all go and sit on the beach? You're going to tell me I'm wrong.
No. I think you share the view of many people, including myself. Yeah, so they kicked off with a win, but I think it's the tens of thousands of empty seats in Atlanta that's kind of made the headlines. It started at 3 o'clock local time on a working Monday. The attendance was just over £20,000 in a stadium.
£20,000? They were £20,000. My favourite. Can you send that to... Hold on a second. We apparently, I didn't know this in this station, have a gaff of the week. And apparently leading the way at the moment is Jeremy Carl's mobile going off in the middle of a serious interview. But I think we should add to the gaff of the week. At the FIFA Club World Cup, in their first game, Chelsea, there were £20,000 watching. Get Sam Allard in that bag.
It's clips. You're talking about clips of the week every Friday on Hawksby and Jacobs. Yeah, I've made it a few times before. Well, there's a lot more than £22,000 up for grabs in this tournament, right? But there are 22,000 people there in a ground that holds 71,000. The whole top tier was closed. And yeah, one of the big talking points over the last few weeks has been whether people cared about this new look competition. I think it's fair to say it's got off to the worst possible start. On the pitch, you either get two things. You get a game that's lacking real quality, or you get a real one-sided game. We saw Bayern Munich beat an amateur team in New Zealand 10-0 the other day. Absolute waste of time. Yeah. And when you've got a major tournament being played out in front of a stadium quarter full, Jeremy, it's just not what football's all about.
I'm a massive football fan, but I'm not going to watch that. It's football fatigue. Royal Ascot, day one, Field of Dreams, wins the St James's Palace. You don't know anything about horse racing. I just want to confuse you. Tell me your view of day one at Royal Ascot. Look at his face. I love it. Go on.
No, it's fine. I'm not here to... If you're going to try and take the mick out of me, that's fine. But if you want to be clever, you can do it yourself, mate.
You're just playing the card, aren't you? Come on, I'm giving you the chance to talk about Royal Ascot. It's on the list.
Well, as you said, Field of Gold won the spectacular victory in the James's Palace Stakes at Ascot. So that was definitely probably the big race today. The 8-11 favourite under Colin Keane managed to get over the line. Elsewhere, Docklands landed the Queen and Stakes, and I think that's probably the two big talking points from Royal Ascot today.
It is true, and you didn't pick up on my obvious gaff to make you feel better. I called it Field of Dreams, and it was Field of Gold, of course. Do you remember that sacked referee? Is it Coote or Cootie?
Coote.
Dave, it's Coote. Sorry, I've got Coote in it. Charged by the FA over the Klopp video. Finally, that was appalling. And this was a man, didn't he then admit things about his drug taking and sexuality and stuff like that? This guy had an absolutely massive fallout, didn't he?
Yeah, it was absolutely massive at the time. Yeah, but he has today been charged by the FA for the comments that he made about Jurgen Klopp in a video that was leaked. It was back in November when he was suspended. There was a clip that went viral of him making derogatory comments about the former Liverpool manager. He was then sacked a month later by the PGMOL. And yeah, he gave an interview where he came out. There was also a video at the time where he was... there was drugs involved in it. But yeah, well, listen, I think that one thing I say about this, Jez, the whole thing is really, really messy. There was a video which kind of got leaked on social media a couple of weeks ago where he's got a new job and that's being a delivery driver, and kind of somebody had taken a kind of footage from their kind of cam on the front door, and people sort of quick to kind of mock, and I didn't feel comfortable with me. I think this is the guy who made a mistake. The comments he made about using proper language that was used obviously not acceptable. He's lost his job, but I think in a situation like this, you kind of almost want the guy just to be left alone, to kind of have the healthy.
And actually, that's a really good point. And you also think to yourself, he's been charged by the FA. He's not a football referee anymore. Listen, he made his mistakes. He's obviously been hauled over the coals, and we've all had that, and it's not nice. And then you sort of move on and listen, leave it where it is. Emma Raducanu.
There we go. Well, she's in good hands in the US Open.
Can you give us an update on her bad back, Sam?
Probably not great, but she might not need a good back in a few weeks' time because she's going to be alongside Carlos Alcaraz. Probably the most eye-catching pairing during the US Open.
Are they playing mixed doubles at the US Open? Those two?
So Alcaraz and Raducanu are going to be together. It's a new look US Open mixed doubles event, and I think Emma's probably hit the jackpot, hasn't she? Because either Sinner or Alcaraz, so she's in pretty good hands.
I think you're better looking and more talented than Carlos Alcaraz.
Well, I know nothing about horse racing, so probably not right.
You're really sore about that, aren't you?
No, it's all good.
Now, shall I tell you why? I read it out because I actually hadn't checked the horse racing results, so you did me on that one.
No, fair enough.
Mate, the other thing I wanted to ask you was US Open. Did you stay up and watch it? We spoke last week. I mean, that was brutal. Oakmont, did you see
final.
it? What?
Oh, yeah, that was Sinner Alcaraz. Oh, the golf, you mean? Sorry.
Yeah, the golf at Oakmont. How bad was that, man? Did you see it?
Yeah. It was a crazy weekend where you're used to seeing birdie. It's crazy how so many of the best golfers in the world found that tough work, right?
I never thought I'd see a tournament that. I mean, the course was apparently unplayable, and that JJ. I mean, we wanted McIntyre, obviously from Scotland, to win, but it was astonishing. I don't know if you saw it, Peeps, but it was an unbelievable ending. Sam, I feel like I need to give you a tip. Are you going to Royal Ascot?
No, not this year, sadly.
Do you have a little bet at Royal Ascot?
Do you know what? I didn't today, to be honest with you. But go on, if you give me a tip, I'll play.
I will give you a tip off air because I wouldn't want to condone gambling, but I have an absolute surefire winner for you on Thursday. All my friends are going. I myself am not going. But I promise you I'll send you that tip, mate.
All right,
thank you.
Tell Jodie she can WhatsApp me.
You what?
If you tell Jodie in the break, she can WhatsApp me.
Oh, OK. All right, fine. I'm doing a national radio programme and I'll get my assistant producer to send you a WhatsApp. Is that a message or a love note? What is it,
well, you can just tell me on air, but if you don't want to, that's fine. I get that.
I'll message you myself. I'll get your number. Is that all right? Am I allowed to do that?
You can. It's probably easier if you just tell Jodie.
No, I'm going to get my number off your mum. See you soon. Ta-ra.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Back hour 3 of Drive for Tuesday. Is it Tuesday? I know it is. So listen, the last tip I gave Ryan won the derby. Am I right, Ryan? All of his mates back Lambourne at 10-1. I will give you a tip for Royal Ascot on air tomorrow, I promise you, after 6 o'clock, for Royal Ascot on Thursday. I'm not going. All my mates are going. Listen, but I promise you I'll give you a tip. Thanks for tuning in, by the way. Loads to talk about between now and 7 o'clock ahead of Kev O'Sullivan's Political Asylum. Brendan O'Neill, chief political writer for Spiked, on the way. I think over the last 24 hours, there's a sort of... I mean, there are obviously massively important things going on in the world. We heard Donald J. Trump earlier on Truth Social saying that Israel, but he implied America, has control of the airspace over Iran. That is a powder keg in the Middle East. Many in the world saying this is Israel putting its nose where it shouldn't. Look what happened in Syria. Look what happened in other areas. Many other people saying, hold on a minute, the mad mullahs of Iran have been funding terrorism via the Houthis and Hamas and Hezbollah for years, and maybe Netanyahu is doing what needs to be done at the behest, I don't know, of the Americans. We're looking at that. We heard from Chris Parry, ex-NATO commander, saying he believes that a regime change will happen. We'll keep you updated. The other big news from yesterday at home, our Home Secretary Yvette Cooper standing up and saying that there will now be screechy U-turn, a grooming gangs inquiry, and shockingly, but not for many of us who've been saying this for a long time, this abuse has been widespread. It's been brushed under the carpet by various institutions from the top to the bottom, that a majority of the perpetrators are Muslim and British Pakistani men, and shock horror, illegal migrants also make up large numbers. There will be an inquiry. The response, I think, by many people over the last couple of, well, few hours, days, I should say, is this going to be a whitewash? Is this actually going to deal with the heinous crime of child abuse, or is it going to be swept under the carpet under the banner of, oh, we don't want to cause multicultural tension? No, there's a difference between right and wrong. Nigel Farage, the leader of Reform, made a statement about an hour ago. He's with Mike Graham on Breakfast tomorrow morning. Here's just a little reminder ahead of Brendan O'Neill. Nigel, the floor's yours.
Well, there's a couple of things to point out. The first is Baroness Casey, who produced this report, which has finally pressured him into saying something. She makes it clear that a large number of these cases are committed not just by foreign-born nationals, but by asylum seekers. That means, yes, those young men that I've been talking about for the last 5 years, crossing the English Channel, undocumented, and often coming from cultures in which women aren't even second-class citizens. That's the first big point that I draw out from this. But is Keir Starmer going to smash the gangs? 2,000 across the English Channel in the space of the last week alone.
Nigel Farage is live and exclusive on Mike Graham's Brilliant Morning Glory tomorrow from 6, exclusive to Talk. Right now, chief political writer of Spike, delighted to have him on. Brendan O'Neill, a very good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Hey, Jeremy, I'm good, thank you.
I really struggled yesterday, pal. We're friends. We've done this for a while now. I wasn't really interested in the political arguments of, oh, it was this government, it was this official, it was this cabinet minister, this local official, this policeman, this social worker. I, as a father, it makes me sick to the stomach. I have spent as long as you've spent saying that this is a fact. I remember speaking to a police officer undercover and him saying to me about the Rotherham debacle years ago, oh, you know what, Jez, actually we perhaps weren't as robust in what we were supposed to do. That was the rule from above because they were worried about social, the lack of social cohesion. What we find out tomorrow, yesterday, Brendan, is something that I think many of us realise, that this is not a racist comment. The majority of these men are British Pakistani men raping. Let's just have this out. This isn't grooming, this is raping. Paedophile men raping 8-year-old white girls, and it being covered up by institutions, by communities, by all sorts of people. And just as a parent, but more than that, as a moral human being, yes, I've made many mistakes in my life before the left jump on me, but in my world, as a father of 4 daughters, there are things that go beyond the pale. And if that happened to my kid, I'd be in prison, and I don't give a fat rat's backside who finds that disrespectful. That is exactly how I see it. And I cannot sit here and understand in any way how our society has covered this up, Brendan.
You know, it's hard not to despair, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it's never good to despair. One should always be angry, but faithful that things can change. But in this issue, I find myself despairing, because you're absolutely right. It wasn't one party or the other. It was all political parties. It was every wing of the establishment. It was local police forces, local councils, universities who pumped out rubbish reports claiming there was no truth in the grooming gang discussion, journalists, the commentariat, the media elites, across the board. Every wing of the establishment conspired in covering up the worst scandal of the post-war period. That's what we're talking about here. And, you know, girls suffered enormously. These girls, some of the poorest, most vulnerable girls in the country, were sacrificed at the altar of ideology. Their safety and their dignity was seen as less important than preserving multiculturalism and protecting it from criticism. That's what we're talking about here. We're talking about the establishment throwing girls to the wolves in order to cover its own arse. That's what's happened.
I couldn't agree more. I'm going to repeat what you just said, because I think it's absolutely, clip this up, conspired to cover up the worst scandal of the post-war period in this country. I don't, apart from the moral outrage that I feel, I mean, I said this earlier, and you know the job that we do. If we'd been having this conversation 2 years ago, we'd have been labelled everything in the world. Before Yvette Cooper stood up yesterday, anybody who deigned to say the majority of these men are British Pakistani men, that is a fact. That's not made up. It's not a racist comment. A large number of these men are illegal migrants who have been allowed, males, not with their families, not from war-torn countries before you lot start, men who have arrived here, thrown their passports, disappeared into our society, and it turns out they're sexual criminals as well. And I think what I wanted to ask you was something that I really, really feel, and I could be wrong. I almost feel like Great Britain, the British people, and love them, you know, for everything that's happened to them. I think this is a sort of crossroads. I think if you throw in COVID and the cost of living crisis and the expenses scandal, let's screw the pensioners and let's upset the farmers and let's do it. You know, these stupid stories today, migrants given free TV licenses, migrants giving flying lessons. I genuinely believe that this will attack the very core of millions of people who will say, do you know what? Enough is enough. We're not talking, by the way, about taking to the streets, Keir, before you start throwing that one. We're talking about the British people discovering that their voice is powerful, that their outrage is real, and that this is not acceptable in our country. And this is a really unpopular thing to say, Brendan, but you know, it needs to be said. I've never worried about people coming to this country who bring something to this country, who pay their taxes, provide something. I know plenty of people who love this country and embrace it. What I think we've reached is that we are having people come to this country because they tell us that their countries are appalling, and then they spend their entire time trying to implement everything that's appalling into our country while smashing everything that we've always believed in. And that, in my mind, is why the British people are at the end of their tether, and I really believe that.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And, you know, this scandal is far worse than even the other ones that you mentioned, because at least during COVID, and, you know, the police not doing their job properly and the NHS going down the toilet and all those other scandals we've talked about for ages and ages, they're kind of screw-ups. People are being stupid. There's a lot of idiocy amongst the ruling class. We all know that. This scandal is different, because in this scandal, they knew what was happening. They knew that girls as young as 8, 9, 10 were being raped. They knew they were being passed around between men who were largely from Pakistani backgrounds. They knew it was happening, and they decided not to talk about it openly or not to investigate it thoroughly because they were scared of being called racist. So there's a calculation that took place here. And that calculation, whether it was very conscious or subconscious or whatever it was, that calculation was that these girls matter less than our reputations. The lives of these girls matter less than preserving the integrity of the British state as we see it.
The integrity of the British state, I would say, is under attack. And that, I mean, I said earlier, I found myself yesterday embarrassed to be British for the first time in my life, and I'm not over-egging what I'm saying. There are many politicians I disagree with. There are things that are good and bad about every country. But if anybody does not understand that the years of, oh, Great Britain's a leader, Great Britain's great. Jack Elsom, the Sun's political editor, said it earlier. You know, in his leader, we've been lied to by the state, and internationally, people will be looking at this going, "What? Sorry, this has been covered up." To me, it's just such a basic human thing, the abuse of children. You know, we bring it back every day on this station and this show, and I say this a lot. That Lucy Connolly is in prison. I have no time for what she wrote about the Muslim community, and you can print that, people who are going to slag me, right? But I would have thought that educating her about how wrong those words are would have been better than throwing her in jail. But we allow Hugh Edwards, a paedophile, to walk the streets whilst we're paying his pension. I, for example, said 24 hours ago, I'm absolutely convinced that 99% of Muslims and British Pakistanis would find this behaviour abhorrent. Why haven't they said anything then? Why is there deafening silence? Am I being told then that this heinous crime by institutions in this country, by communities in this country from other countries, am I being told at the age of 60 that raping a young girl is okay? Because I don't want to live here if that's the case, because that's not right in anyone's book.
You know, when you say that you feel ashamed to be British, and that's a really big thing to say, especially from someone like you. I know you're a proud Brit, and many of your listeners are too, but this scandal is making people feel like that. Yeah. Because let's not call it a scandal. This horror, this outrage against working class girls committed with the complicity of the state. What this scandal, outrage, horror, what it has done is destroyed the social contract. It has completely torn up the social contract, because the social contract says that we ordinary citizens will abide by the rules and do everything we can and pay our way and earn a living and be good people. And in return, the state will look after us. It will look after us if we get sick. Yep. It will look after us if we suffer a criminal attack. It will look after us if for some reason we can't work or run out of money and we need a bit of assistance. That's the social contract. This has destroyed the social contract, because we now know we live under a state which in certain circumstances will sacrifice our children's lives in order to preserve their own reputation. That's the end of the social contract.
But explain to me, you're intelligent, far more intelligent than me. Explain to me, people on television stations, people in newspapers, activists, who would watch what we're talking about and they'll say, oh, it's just a bloody right-wing ranting about this, you know. I want to go into their houses and see if they've got an 8-year-old daughter, and I don't care about the colour of it. I'm not bothered about where you come from. I'm not. There isn't a bone. I'd ask. I've got plenty. I don't care what people... I care about the fact that a child, whatever colour that child is being raped. And for some reason, for whatever reason, sacrificed on the altar of ideology is what I think somebody said earlier, which I think, Ben Habib, which is absolutely right. How can the very people who go on about how this world should be fair, how we should be respectful, how we should be balanced, how there shouldn't be prejudice, how can those people not look in the mirror and go, I'm sticking up for people who are raping young girls here. I'm making excuses for them. I think that's my horror, if I'm frank.
You know, and most of the young girls, as we know, were white girls, white working class girls, or poor girls.
Many with difficulties, by the way.
Yeah. Some of them were with extreme difficulties. Some of them were Sikh girls as well, girls from the Sikh community who were also looked upon with contempt by these gangs of mostly Muslim men. So I don't care what background the girl comes from. I think our society has a responsibility to protect them from the most extraordinary abuse. But, you know, think about, I just want to say something about women, if I may, which is that look at what the left has done to women over the past couple of decades. The left told us that it wasn't true that Pakistani men were preying on white working class girls. The left campaigned for the right of men who identify as women to go into women-only spaces. The left supported the imprisonment of male rapists alongside vulnerable women. The left said Israeli women weren't raped during the 7th of October pogrom, and if they did, well, what do you expect? This sacrifice of women's safety and dignity at the altar of ideology has been one of the most obscene events of my lifetime. And every lowlife involved in it should be made to answer for what they said and for the crimes that they enabled.
Well, I was watching Yvette Cooper give her speech yesterday, and the guy said just now on the show, Bridget Phillipson, Jess Phillips, Angela Rayner, Lucy Powell looked like they were chewing glass. And I made this point before, actually, when we were talking about same-sex toilets and the Supreme Court. These people have, rightly, by the way, just going to say this, campaigned for women's rights. I'm all for women's rights. What I don't understand is the deafening silence from these women's rights activists when it comes to young girls having to change with a bloke in a skirt who's got a penis, or, as you quite rightly say, young girls being abused by Muslim and Pakistani men, in their majority, and asylum seekers. In that instance, women's rights, or the protection of girls and women, you're so right, goes out the door. Can I throw this at you as well, though? There's an interesting one for you. The small boats crisis, again, they said yesterday, a lot of these are illegal migrants, is deteriorating in the English Channel. The Downing Street admitted today it's getting worse by the day. I mean, and where is he in all of this? He's in Canada. The Downing Street is admitting categorically the small boat saga is getting worse, not better.
It's
so we're letting people into our country who are screwing our public services, and it turns out, raping young girls. Not all of them, before people jump on the bandwagon, but if you let people into your country and you don't know who they are, what's going to happen?
I feel sometimes like I'm going mad. It is a basic principle of a democratic nation that you are in control of your borders, that you know who's coming here, what products are coming here, what's being exported, imported, whether it's materials or people or whatever it might be. You have to know what's coming over your borders and what's leaving your borders. That is a basic principle of being a sovereign nation. So this idea that you can be chilled out about it, it's only 2,000 people a week, or it's only a few boats, or it's, you know, or that bloke, that Labour guy on Question Time who said they're mostly women and children, not true. They're so chilled out about it because they don't think it's a problem. They don't think it's a problem that we have completely porous borders and no control over our own nationhood and our own national destiny. And that's why people are up in arms on this issue, because they want Britain to be in control of itself and its future. And right now, we absolutely are not.
In terms of, you know, we've talked like this for a long, long time, vociferously, and would be and have been criticised. Oh, you know, this, I mean, I've been called every name under the sun. I genuinely don't care. Yesterday, I thought, was a sort of moment, really, because I think I remember taking a call some months ago after Southport, and this woman saying, I'm a nurse and I disagree with what's happening with the NHS. I hate what's happening with same-sex toilets. I would like to march, but I'm going to be viewed as far right. I'm not. I'm a 45-year-old mother of two who has real concerns about where this country's going. I'd love to know what you think comes next, because I'm not talking about taking to the streets. I think the British people are going to flex their muscles, and I'm not talking about voting in reform. I'm not talking about any of that. I think the British people are suddenly going to say to whatever politician of whatever party, not this is our country, but we're not prepared to be put at the back of the queue. We're not prepared for the things that matter to us, the difference between right and wrong, to be sacrificed for this ideological rubbish. And you better listen to us. And I genuinely think that's coming in whatever guise. Do you agree with that?
I do, absolutely. And I think you're right that the far right slur doesn't work anymore.
No.
You know, it's so clear now that that was just an insult that the elites invented to shut down debate, to criminalize public opinion, to demonize ordinary people. That's what far right meant. It basically meant shut your mouth. That's why they used it. And it worked on some people. It worked on that nurse you mentioned. It worked on people I know personally who would share our views on grooming gangs and other issues, but don't say them publicly or at work or with their friends because they're afraid of being called fascist. So it actually did work. It had a chilling effect on public debate. But now, look at Keir Starmer. A few months ago, he was talking about the far-right bandwagon. Now he's jumped on the far-right bandwagon. So is he now far-right? Is Jess Phillips far-right? Are all these people who smeared ordinary good Brits, are they now far right as well? So people are sick and tired of being insulted, looked down upon, and taken advantage of by the establishment. And I do think something big is going to change. It has to, because it can't go on like this.
Just to finish, not on a light note, but this just if you are watching, you should watch Brendan O'Neill drop his head into his hands. Councillors today apologised for any upset caused over a letter sent to parents by a head teacher which implied, this is going to send him over the edge, the Union flag could be seen as potentially offensive or sectarian. Fiona MacDonald of the Cross Arthley Primary School in East Renfrewshire raised concern following a Leavers event last week which was attended by parents and carers. In her letter, Miss MacDonald said the use of a Union flag featuring staff images caused some upset at the beginning of the evening. She added, as a school we promote inclusion and acceptance, actively working against potentially offensive or sectarian messaging. Although we recognise this was not the intent, we are concerned that others within or beyond the school community might consider that this is something, i.e. the flag, that we're trying to encourage. Jesus God, I'm glad my dad's no longer here. Now our flag's apparently offensive.
It's just unbelievable, isn't it? It's so ludicrous. And you do worry about what kids are being pumped with at school these days.
Yeah.
I think more schools should be like the Michaela School, run by Catherine Burbelsing out in Wembley in northwest London, where the kids actually sing the national anthem and stand in front of the flag. And
shock, horror, really? I've told you about my daughter is at university, and I won't go into details because she'll never go at me. But she told me about a lecture where one of the lecturers, and she'd be a little bit lefter than me because she's a student, and he basically blamed the British Army in Britain for every war and says our army is offensive and causes problems everywhere and it's a disgrace and it's an embarrassment. And you do then suddenly think, what are our kids being told? I mean, we've got politicians and officials sweeping the most horrendous crimes under the carpet. There seems to be this ideology. Let me ask, tell me to shut up. How old are you?
I'm 50.
Do you believe that this is going to change? Maybe not in my lifetime. Do you think we are going to go back to what I call rational common sense, or do you think we're beyond the pale? Is this country going to wake up before it's too late, Brendan?
You know, this thing about the flag, it actually ties back to the discussion we've been having this evening, which is this culture of self-loathing in the establishment. They hate the country that they are in charge of. And just think about what that means. If you have a government that's is charged with running the country, but it hates the country. It's charged with looking after people, but it hates those people. It's charged with guarding our traditions, but it hates those traditions. And what this gives rise to is a government that is completely wrong, completely turned on its head, a government that thinks it has to protect its own reputation and its own privilege from the vulgar public. And that's what we currently live under. And I do think something has to change. I think you were right earlier when you said we're at a crossroads. My concern is that we might go down one road where we become more apathetic and we give up. And it would be an understandable response if people felt so frustrated. But there's another road as well where people actually think we need more democratic options, we need more choice, and we need to be listened to for once. And I really hope we take that turning.
It's so good to always have you on, mate. I love it. Please check out Spike. Brendan O'Neill, chief political writer of Spike. Excellent publication. Check that out, 6:25. We're live across the UK. So many people responding. We've loads to do. We'll take your calls. Let's get some calls on 0344 499 1000. Drive is on till 7 on Talk.
so unable to look and sound normal, to look and sound as if he understands why it is that so many voters feel so frustrated, feel so betrayed, feel so let down. He just doesn't seem to get that. He seems to exist in a kind of bubble of, you know, hashtag be kind politics, the condemnation and smearing of anyone to the right of where he is.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Text messages today, loads and loads for all of you asking. Yeah, Nigel Farage live and exclusive with Mike Graham, my mate on Morning Glory, my mate Mike Graham, and Nigel Farage. They're on together tomorrow morning. Hello, Jez. I love the banter between you and Ian Collins. That was sent about 5 days ago. Dan from Lingfield, great racecourse. Could we take the conversation one step further, please? What exactly are the authorities, politicians and the state scared of when not wanting to upset Asian communities? This information is key to finding out exactly what is the problem in the UK. I suspect the multiculturalism experiment hasn't worked how they hoped for, and they cannot bring themselves to admit it. I completely agree. Lisa Price, good afternoon. What do you think about what do you think about the fact they're saying that Whitehall may be exempt from the inquiry? I don't believe the British people will allow that to happen. Whitehall is at the very centre of this inquiry, and it has to be. How many of the perpetrators might have left this country, says Mark. That's interesting. It's very easy to get into this country, probably easy to get out of. Afternoon, Jez. A TV licence is just the beginning. A flying instructor called MG today. He didn't call him MG, he called MG today and said they're getting free flying lessons. This is migrants getting free flying lessons. Can you please explain to me how that works? Jeremy says Bill in Northumberland. God's country, William. Not only do the illegal migrants get free TV licences, also get a free TV and no doubt Sky and Netflix. Great debate. Love the show. Cliff's in Berkshire. We need to completely drain the swamp and ensure that everyone within the Good Dog Club who has covered it up, be that by action or commission, should be called to account. Even if they have to be taken kicking and screaming, there must be no exception. Simon Dinage, it's not the government, Jez. It's the blob who actually control this country. Yeah, we agree with that. Andy and Thatcham. If those complicit in the rape gangs do not face trial, Jez, and consequences, there will be no deterrent to stop this happening again. Jen's in Wolves. Wolverhampton. Now I know what I should have said when TV licence enforcement came banging on my door. I hadn't paid it. Instead of showing them the evidence, I should have said, I'm an illegal migrant. The idiots got it wrong anyway. They got the right address, but it's a completely different town. Great. Jeff's in Clerkenwell. How on earth is Starmer going to face this scandal at PMQs, or is he going to claim asylum in Canada? Brilliant. Susan's in Worthing. One of my grannies lived in Worthing. Hi, Jez. I'm just thinking about the illegal immigrants getting a free TV licence. Where do they get the TV from? Are we playing for that as well? I wouldn't bet against it, says Susan in Worthing. Dixon shot window. Jez, it seems that the slugs in Westminster and the uncivil servants have been given a get-out-of-jail-free card with this inquiry. I hate Starmer so much. The cover-up is going to be. Alison says the general election is 4 years away. How on earth do I stop my country falling on its backside? Liam's in Warrington. I'll tell you one thing, Jez. The French wouldn't accept a whitewash into the Grooming gang inquiry. They would take to the streets, would they? Let's go to the phone lines. We'll go to Cambridgeshire. Very nice. Stephen, you're on Talk Drive. Good evening.
Hello, Jeremy.
How are you?
I was just ringing up to agree with one of your other contributors. You can kick the British people so many times. It's gone on for years and years and years. Been covered up, you know, Conservatives, Labour, whatever. But for Starmer to be there, head of the Department of Public Prosecution, you know, DPS or whatever, and claim that they don't know anything about it. He knew every detail of every case.
This is a man who was the Director of Public Prosecutions when Jimmy Savile was let off. Let's be perfectly honest.
Yeah, exactly.
But by the way, I can say that. You know, Boris Johnson dared to say that in the House of Commons and got absolutely slaughtered. And I'm not sticking up for Boris Johnson. The fact is, and I keep going back to it, I don't lay this completely at that idiot's feet. January, it's all far right. That's just rhetoric, and that's just him trying to escape it. But this goes back years. For me, Steve, the biggest thing in all of this as a father is how we as a society can ever look ourselves in the face again. I'm not interested in your ideology or your politics, not you. I'm talking about generally. If there's people in this country in positions of any sort of power who think it's all right for a girl to be raped, then I don't want you in my country. End of. I don't want you anywhere near a civilised liberty. It's wrong. Thank you, Stephen. We'll go to Bolton. Mark, how are you?
How you doing, Jez?
Do you know when we get Bolton on the phone, I think of two things. Peter Kay, what do you say when you get in a cab? Been busy? What time are you on till?
Yeah.
How's Bolton? Is it all right?
Yeah, it's not too bad.
Good lad.
Too bad.
What you got for me?
I just wanted to know this disgusting scandal. I mean, words can't sort of. I can't get the right words out to what I think about it. I think the multiculturalism does not work. It's not worked. It's a lot of us and them. If that, without, and that's not sounding racist. I'm not racist, but I wondered why the Muslim community, elders, the what they call the imams from the mosque, why do they not come out and say?
And ladies and gentlemen, Mark in Bolton makes the most salient point, and I said it at 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock and 6 o'clock. I am sure there are millions, hundreds of thousands of Muslims and British Pakistani people, men, women, who disagree violently with this. Why? Why the deafening silence? Mark in Bolton, thank you. Beautiful part of the country where Peter Kay still lives in a semi-detached, makes tea, plays cards and can sell out the O2 and make 30 million quid. Do I sound bitter? I probably am. 25 to 7. I've got a surprise for you next on Talk Drive.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Here from 10 and before Julia from 6 o'clock, the legend that is Mike Graham, Talk Breakfast, Morning Glory, an exclusive with Nigel Farage. I just thought, do you know what, he never works. Actually, we're going out for dinner. Michael Graham, good evening.
Good evening.
You've listened to my outrage. I've
Yes.
listened to your outrage. I struggle with this. I'm being completely serious. I struggle with it because we can read Jack Elsom's Leader in the Sun, the outrage, an institutional cover-up. You've got a daughter, a daughter I adore. I've got 4 daughters. I'd be in prison if somebody did this to my kids. And that's it. I'm not even having a debate about it.
No, it's not even a question, is it? I mean, incredible that it went on for so long. And it's still going on, by the way. We had Sarah Poachin on today, Reform's newest MP, and she told me this when we first had her in a couple of weeks, and probably a month ago now. She said, you know, there are people in her constituency in Runcorn who tell her stories of what's going on there still. She says that she's seen it with her own eyes. Young women getting dropped off at taxis, getting picked up in taxis, being driven inevitably by Asian men. young women who walk the streets of Runcorn being propositioned by these men, asking them if they want to go with them, age 13, 14, 15. You know, the idea that this is no longer going on is a complete nonsense. And what we also know now, sorry to interrupt, is some of the asylum seekers coming here on the small boats illegally are also now culpable. We've been saying this, right, Jeremy and you and I have been saying this for what, 2-3 years?
I find it, and I was sitting here thinking, listening to you, and Brendan and Neil, who I love, and I'm thinking 2 years ago, you and I would have been called racist. He would have been called racist. When Yvette Ball stood up yesterday and said that, and the front bench, the women on the front bench were chewing glass because they looked like somebody had literally smacked
and wasn't
them
it
straight
interesting?
between.
Why did they put all the women on the front bench? They're not normally there.
No.
What have they done with all the men?
Well, the
It's
Prime
all
Minister was in Canada, and the rest have been put...
No, but they think we're stupid. They think, oh, we'll put some women on the front bench of the Labour Party. It'll look like we're on the side of women.
And I wanted to ask one question. I said it just now. Jess Phillips, who I know, right? Yeah. Angela, all of you women who have talked actively about women's rights, fair play to you. Where's your desire for young girls' rights at 8 who are being raped? So set on your ideology of, you know, oh, it's really important, multiculturalism, to make our society. It doesn't work.
No,
and it hasn't worked. And you know, there are people we know, activists and people who would be very against this station, who would say, oh, that's outrageous. What are they saying now? I want to go to their houses and go, you see your daughter? You see your daughter? She gets raped by a British Pakistani man. In fact, the Labour Party said that it's been proven. What are you going to do? You're still going to be making excuses because it doesn't work.
No, you can't do it anymore. And, you know, the fact that they did it at all is horrendous. You know, I don't buy. Because I've said this continually throughout the course of this week. How on earth is it in any way prejudicial to a community if you go into that community with the police and you take out of that community people who are raping children and you put them on trial and you put them in prison? How on earth is that upsetting anybody who isn't already is somehow in league with them? You know, because
I'm not sure religion should get in the way of common sense.
Well,
in the world I live, common sense says you don't. Yeah, but kids being raped.
It's not about religion even. It's about a community which is full of people of British Pakistani origin. Why would they be upset if the police went in and arrested rapists? Why? So if they're not going to be upset, why are the Labour Party worried that they're going to be upset? And if they are going to be upset, what's wrong with them?
I completely agree. Are you like me? I mean, actually, like me, like many of the listeners, I'm sure you get the same at breakfast. Many are concerned this grooming gang inquiry won't go far enough. It'll be a whitewash. There won't be judicial powers. Whitehall will be exempt. Kemi Badenoch's first time I've seen her stick her head above the parapet. 4 survivors today who were saying it needs to be survivor-led. I know who I'd put in front. I mean, I had her on. Did you have Maggie
Oliver? No, I saw her in the lobby this morning.
Well, I had her on yesterday evening. Bless her, as the announcement was made, and she won't be serving because she's just given a judicial review letter to the Home Office saying that the whole thing's a stink. She's been amazingly strong
incredible.
on this.
She's been incredible.
Traded a job for this, by the way.
Of course she has, and so many people have. And the bottom line is that, you know, Keir Starmer has not U-turned on this at all. Keir Starmer has pretended that he has U-turned, right? He still hates having to do this stuff, right? Why do you think he announced that he was going to do it and then shot off to Canada so he wouldn't have to answer any questions? He still hasn't made a proper statement. I think some individual journalists have now managed to ask him a question.
Oh, he said to Sky News earlier, he's not here, he said, I'm doing something about it. Other people are just using it to jump up and down.
But what I'm saying is that he hasn't actually given a proper press conference. He's been caught with a microphone and somebody's asked him a question. You know, he hasn't tweeted about it. He was tweeting about dodgy roads yesterday. You know, he doesn't think it's important
Greece
enough.
or things with potholes?
Not Greece, no.
Things that you Did you see what I did there?
Yeah, I see what you did there. He was also telling more lies about the money, the infrastructure money they're going to spend on bridges and tunnels. Half of it's going on the Lower Thames crossing. He doesn't say that. Everything he says is duplicitous. He's also said today that when he was calling people jumping on a far-right bandwagon, he wasn't talking about ordinary people. He was just talking about politicians. Well, that's another lie. You know, the guy weasels and wheedled his way through and thinks we're all
Why is Lucy Connolly in jail then, Starmer?
Yeah, exactly.
Idiot man.
And why has Lucy Powell not said anything? You know, this is the woman who called Tim Montgomery a dog whistling racist, effectively. You know, the whole thing stinks. Nigel Farage coming on tomorrow. He's already said it needs to be properly put together with proper, you know, judiciary powers. They need to be subpoenaing police records. Absolutely. They need to be subpoenaing telephone calls, records of any messages that were sent, emails that were sent. You know, because we know there is a whole pile of stinking garbage which is hiding below the surface.
It's really interesting. Jack Elson was on the show. His lead this morning said that we've been let down by the state. I'm going to ask you, because we talk loads in and out of this job. I don't know how best to put it, MG, right? But I think the British people have reached a moment, right? So I'm not talking about the people who go, what are you saying? I'm not saying about anything. I'm saying I think bashed down by expenses scandals and COVID and the cost of living and pensioners being screwed and veterans being made homeless and farmers being completely eradicated. I think this is, I'm not saying the final nail in the coffin, but I think people are going to go, do you know what? I'm sick of being eighth in the queue. I'm sick of living my life so I wipe the backside of other people. I'm sick of the fact that I'm now in a country where apparently institutions will back up or rather cover up young girls being raped. It's time my voice was heard. I think the British people, through stations like this, through The Sun, are being heard. And you know what? They're not far right and they're not racist. No. There's just common sense. It's decency and it's right and it's normal, man.
And they've just had enough. They've had enough because it's been going on for years. And for years they've been told, you know, oh, don't wave the flag of St George, a bit racist. You know, don't talk about, you know, incomers because, you know, that's a bit racist. Don't talk about an invasion of 150,000 illegal migrants who have all come here on, you know, a variety of illegal means. Don't talk about that because we know that they're contributing to our society. And, you know, we saw from Baroness Casey's interviews earlier today and yesterday, they've actually tip-X'd out the word Pakistani. In a report.
They've what?
They tip-X'd out the word Pakistani.
She didn't, they did. No, the Labour Party.
No, well, whoever was producing a report for the police about the ethnicity of the people who were involved in these crimes, right? They literally took the word out. They didn't record the ethnicity of the people who were being reported to the police. Many of them never saw any kind of justice whatsoever. Loads of them weren't prosecuted. When Keir Starmer was head of the CPS, you know, there was less than half the number of prosecutions than there were after he left.
I always said this. I remember saying this to you before, and I stuck up for Johnson a lot. In hindsight, he made a lot of mistakes. I get that. But I remember when he stood up in the House of Commons and he went, and the gentleman opposite was the Director of Public Security when Jimmy Savile. And everybody went, oh, this is disgraceful, this is outrageous. No, absolutely true. I remember when Boris Johnson got ousted because of the parties and all of that scandal. I remember Keir Starmer going, it doesn't matter whether you were at them or not, you were in charge. Well, you were in charge. You were the Director of Public Prosecutions. You've allowed Hugh Edwards to walk free, a paedophile. You've allowed Jimmy Savile to continue. And I suspect you wonder how many of these things were on his desk as well.
And the trouble is that, you know, he'll have the legal answer for all of that. Well, of course, you know, we couldn't prosecute somebody because the evidence wasn't there or the witnesses weren't really very reliable, which is what happened in a couple of the grooming cases. You know, they didn't go with the unreliable witness. Well, the unreliable witness was unreliable because she was in a terrible state because she'd been gang raped since she was 13.
Gang raped and maybe has social difficulties, maybe some behavioural difficulties, why she was groomed, and also the working class issue of all of this. Unheard, no voice.
And many of these people are in politics now. So, for example, the former chairman of Telford Council, who got up and spoke yesterday in Parliament and made out that, you know, Amber Rudd had tried to block him actually doing a proper investigation into the criminal rape gangs, right? He's now an MP. He's in the House of Commons. He lied and said that she stopped him from doing an inquiry. Sean Davis, I think his name is. We ran him on the show this morning. He actually wrote a letter to Amber Rudd when she was Home Secretary asking her not to investigate. And these guys have got to be answered. They've got to, you know, be talked to. They've got to be spoken to, interrogated. We need answers.
I don't think we'll allow a whitewash. And I'm not even trying to...
Well, I certainly won't allow it.
No.
I'm going to stay on it, and so will you, and so will an awful lot of people, because the worm has now turned. I mean, I'm not one of those people who was frightened to talk about it in the past. Nigel Farage...
You've taught me to be braver.
Yeah. Nigel Farage said all of this in 2014 and was castigated for it.
10 years ago, he said he was called a racist.
And you know, we'll ask him all this tomorrow. You know,
what time's he on?
He's on at 8 o'clock tomorrow.
Amazing.
So it should be very good.
Another
exclusive.
I suggest we go out for a steak and a bottle of red. Is that
a good idea?
All right, well, you go and clean your hands. I don't know why I said that. Mike Graham back in the morning, 6 a.m. with that exclusive. Nigel Farage, reform and his response to that grooming gang. Do you know what, by the way, as well? Grooming gangs, rape gangs. Should be honest.
Let's just call it.
I hate all that. Rape gangs. Just gone 7:15. Kev is here from 7. Petrie, she's a dish. Yeah, she's on from 10, and then nothing matters till Mike's back at 6. See you in 3.
so unable to look and sound normal, to look and sound as if he understands why it is that so many voters feel so frustrated, feel so betrayed, feel so let down. He just doesn't seem to get that. He seems to exist in a kind of bubble of, you know, hashtag be kind politics, the condemnation and smearing of anyone to the right of where he is.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Back 11 minutes to 7. John Lucas, the night news editor from The Sun. Well, he's not in a tick. Kim Bateson, don't forget about the boats coming in every day into our country, Jez. Who are these men? Our streets are not safe, and the government and the do-gooders do not care. Vince, good afternoon. I was in military intelligence for 18 years, and I've always said that if you let people into your country without knowing who they are, surprise, surprise, you might get a few terrorists and rapists in there. Phillips in Fareham. Jez, we should not refer to our rulers as the government anymore. The Muppet Show, I think, is a better description. Cannot stand it. Jeff Phillips, not Jess, that'd be interesting, in London. Thank God for Trump and Netanyahu. If only the gutless, spineless leaders of Europe had had the balls to do this years ago, we would all be in a better place with regards to safety and finance. You're talking about Iran. Michelle, yes, I'll do the horse tip tomorrow. Mary, hello. David Cawthray, we need another country to sort this out. Someone like J.D. Vance to lead this investigation. We will never get names or prosecutions. It'll be a godforsaken cover-up. Hello. Oh, this is nice. Very proud of the Talk Network today. Thank you for telling it as it is. God bless this network for doing your best to get the truth out. Michael, Adrian in Horsham. Well said, Mr. O'Neill. Thank you for what you said about girls and women in our society. 87222. Start your message with the word talk. We do this feature every night. Our great friends at The Sun employ some great people. None better than the legend that is John Lucas, night news editor.
Night news editor. Yep, that's the job title.
Okay, fine. But he never works at night. Don't even. I've tried, but we're not having that. Today's the leader with Jack Elson was absolutely spot on today. Lied to by the state. I think that absolutely encapsulated certainly what everybody here has been thinking. Halfway through the show, of course, Donald Trump posts on social about Iran. Now, the Sun are covering this tomorrow. Iran are on the run. The US Air Force has surged more than 40 extra jets into the UK and Europe, stealth fighter bombers, air-to-air refuelers. There is an indication, as they're not, that Donald J. Trump is either in cahoots with Israel or something monumental is about to happen against the Ayatollahs in Iran.
Right. So are we about to see the US enter this conflict? Keir Starmer thinks that he's not going to, but
yes, he does. Funny
your caller should mention J.D. Vance. He was also tweeting today and he was saying, look, you know, we don't want to get involved in conflict, but, you know, if the president needs to do something in the national interest, he will. What our defence editor, Jerome Starkey, has picked up on today is that the US has moved at least 30 of these large air-to-air refuelers into British territory. We've had F-22 Raptors, F-35 Lightning jets also coming in and through Britain. So we think that, you know, they're positioning themselves for an attack.
It's really interesting, actually, because if you you'll know this from The Sun, it's sort of split. People will say Israel's outrageous, other people will say they're doing the dirty work of the rest of the world. We must never forget, and I know The Sun always talks about this, that Iran, the mad mullahs of Iran, have financed terrorist groups for years. The Houthis, Hezbollah, and Hamas, of course. So, yeah, it'll be very, very interesting. He also tweeted, we know where the Ayatollah is hiding.
Yeah. Less than a veiled threat. Yeah, we know where the Ayatollah's hiding. He's safe for now.
We don't want to take out the religious leader.
We won't take him out yet, brackets, kill him. It's not particularly subtle from Trump.
It's about what happens afterwards, though, isn't it? This has happened before in countries. I mean, look at Syria. You push a couple of bricks and the whole thing comes down. It's what happens afterwards.
Absolutely,
that's what has to be considered.
Yeah.
Conor McGregor.
Yes.
Who has aspirations to be the president of Ireland. That's not going to happen. Last seen hanging out with Katie Price. Smashed a reveller in the face with 2 left hooks in a wild 6 a.m. Ibiza nightclub brawl.
Yep, so this is a story. We've broken this online this afternoon. We've obtained video showing McGregor. So he's the former UFC star. He's in a nightclub. He's having a bit of a mad one in Ibiza, it sounds like.
Him having a mad one. Do you know how he made his money? Is it whiskey?
Oh, he has made, he's done whiskey,
He's made 500 million quid from the whiskey. Yeah. Forget the fighting. That's how he made his money. I mean, he's obscene, isn't he, the way he walks? I mean, I don't know. I mean, he's had legal woes before. More on the way?
Yep, so he's had these legal issues. He was found liable for a rape. This video very clearly shows him punching this guy. I mean, you get punched twice in the face by Conor McGregor, you're going to know about it. But yeah, we've broken this afternoon. You go and check it out on the sun.co.uk. It's all there. Could be a few issues for him.
A couple of stories to finish what's been another deep show. This will just send you, if you are, by the way, thinking what's the point of anything in the world with everything that's going on, this will make the end of the universe may come a lot sooner than scientists previously believe. This is great. Happy Tuesday. It's all ending.
You know, we like this in the newsroom this morning. There's actually some cheers went up, and that's what happens if you start work at 4:30 in the morning. But the good news is
late night. Yeah.
The good news is we're still a little way off. So it's 10 to the power of 78, which is a vigintillion. It's between a vigintillion and a centillion. So if you think a trillion is only 10 to the power of 12. So quite a long way off.
Oh, so trillions of years?
Trillions and trillions
I thought you meant end of night on my birthday in 2 weeks, no?
By then the potholes might be fixed.
No, they won't.
They might have sorted out the borders. Who knows? It's just about long enough. It could happen.
No, that's not going to happen. That's interesting. Let's finish with a story that Ryan will love. Ryan, the cat-loving husband. Goliath, the Galapagos... This will give you inspiration, but worries me slightly, this story. Goliath, the Galapagos tortoise, you try saying, that's become a dad for the first time at 135 in a historic Father's Day miracle at Miami Zoo. Don't look at me like that, Amy. I ain't carrying on having any more kids. If I got to 135, I've got about 12.
Well, that's it. I'm a slightly older dad. I think you might be a slightly...
How old are you?
Well, mine's 4, and I'm around late 30s.
Why do men? What is wrong with you? Look at that. He won't do it.
And that's hard enough.
That's a journalist.
That's hard enough as it is.
What, being late? Thanks you. Yeah, that's nice.
But Goliath the tortoise is 135. He's been put up for the Guinness Book of Records as the oldest new father of any species.
And he's a whopping 517 pounds. He needs a Manjaro jab, doesn't he?
Yeah, and let's not forget about Sweet Pea, because she's the one, that's his partner. She's
Sweet Pea?
She's the one who actually laid the eggs.
Sweet Pea?
Don't forget about her.
Is that his bird? Goliath's bird's called Sweet Pea.
Yeah, and they're the oldest. We think they might be the oldest couple.
Keepers had all but given up hope. Goliath, their whopping 517 pounds, had never managed to produce offspring in his long life. Is it because he basically couldn't hoist himself up onto Sweet Pea? Do you think because of his weight?
Well, I think he'd tried a few times with various lady tortoises. But
just Galapagos. How does Galapagos pull this massive shell? Stop looking at me like Sammy, father of 2. How does he? Do you think they have to lift him up? Is it like horses procreating? Lift up a heavy tortoise?
I wouldn't like to speculate on that. But
I love a journalist, right? That's a great story. Is that going to be front page?
Not quite, but it will be prominent. Yeah.
Do we think Conor McGregor will be right up there? That will be very interesting to people.
Oh yeah, and yeah. It'll do numbers on the website as well.
Somebody texted after you'd finished yesterday. So the Sun, and I think this is really interesting for people. So online, the Sun goes online at 10 o'clock at night, doesn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
And then the paper in the morning. So people can get it early, can't they?
Oh yeah. The digital version, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And is the digital version very different from the paper version? Is it shorter and more succinct?
No. Well, the digital version that you can sign up for is essentially carbon copy of the paper. Yeah.
Tell me quickly about the Sun Club. 30 seconds.
Sun Club, that is our new, absolutely fantastic.
Look at him, he switched right on now.
Paywall. With lots of special content behind it that you wouldn't necessarily get in the paper or online normally.
How much is it?
It's not a lot. It's a few bob really.
It's a minimal few bob. Sun Club is going to be. It's actually a really good idea. There's in-depth stuff on the Sun Club that you just can't get because of the you know, the amount of work that goes into it. You'll see other people have done this. It's $1.99 a month. Do you see how this stuff comes
Yeah, very
to me?
good. That's it. That's
it's only because I've got an earpiece.
Yeah.
He didn't know I was going to ask him about that. We love having you on. Fantastic. So tomorrow in The Sun, Iran on the run. Conor McGregor, a video obtained by The Sun showing him literally striking a man with 2 left hooks in a wild 6 a.m. Ibiza nightclub brawl. The end is nigh, ladies and gentlemen. Centillion, vigillion, I nearly got that wrong, or trillion times millions. We're all going to die soon. But most of all, congratulations to Goliath, the Galapagos tortoise, who at 517 pounds and 135 years managed to hoist himself